Hey, what's going on? Welcome everybody to another episode of Heavy Metallurgy. We are on number 239. Hope you had a good week. It's been a week. It's been a busy week. Yeah. What's up, Alan? Best co-host in the business.
It's been a week. It's been a busy week. But the week is over, so now we can have some fun hanging out, talking to folks. The chat's filling up pretty fast. I think folks will be pretty excited for tonight's topic. It's a topic that we've had several different people over the past few months ask us to cover this one, because it's been a while since we did a This Year in Metal episode. And so folks have been asking, like, hey, next one, can you please do this year? And so we're going to. So hopefully folks will really dig it. But
one thing before we introduce our guest, Alan,
go ahead.
You got something going on Sunday, don't you? We should maybe...
Yes, a couple of things to announce real quick. First off, in case anybody hasn't ordered it yet, Jeff Wagner's Voivod book is out, and he is shipping copies. So you can hop over to Radical Research and order a copy of, yes, Always Moving, The Strange Multiverse of Voivod. This thing is like 3 pounds worth of Voivod lore. So
I haven't got mine yet.
You can't really go wrong. I just got mine 2 days ago, I believe. So yeah, looks great. I've just barely had time to crack the cover on it, but definitely hop over there and order a copy if you haven't. Jeff started working on this around 2019. He put 6 years of his life into putting this book together. And that's not hyperbole. I was listening to an old Radical Research episode a few weeks ago from 2019, where he talked about kind of getting the ball rolling on this particular project. So 6 years to compile a ton of information on a much beloved band. So please support Jeff and go order yourself a copy if you haven't. And the other thing is that on Sunday night at 8 o'clock, Lee, who is Warhammer over there in the live chat, and his comrades have invited me to appear over on the Shredbeard show. So looking forward to that. They do a really fun live cast on Sunday night. They have like a lot of fun segments and stuff they do for each one. So if folks are just taking it easy Sunday night, looking for something fun to do, check us out over there. And yeah, really nice of them to invite me. And I'm looking forward to getting to hang out with those guys.
Awesome. That'll be a fun show for sure. And we have our favorite Norwegian in the field back, Roger Kjorvik. I am anatomically incapable of rolling the R. So cheers, brother. Good to see you. How have you been?
It's been a normal, period. It's kind of a little bit calmer at work and getting some taste of winter, but not a lot. So yeah, a lot of time to listen to metal, and that's the good thing.
Excellent. Yeah, that's definitely a good thing. And I got to say, tonight, 1997, there's a lot of Norwegian titles that we brought Roger in specifically to say them correctly, so I don't sound like a complete fool. So that's the main reason why you're here. No, the only reason. Yeah. Well, awesome. It's good to see everybody filling up the chat. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us as always. Yeah, 1997. It's kind of looking over the list. I was kind of surprised we haven't covered this one already. How did this one slip through the cracks, Alan?
We just haven't got to it. Again, we usually let the guests pick the year, and everyone's kind of picked a lot. Of course, folks have focused more on 80s and earlier 90s years. So I think this is like one of the last years in the 90s that we haven't covered. But as I mentioned, yeah, several folks have been asking for it. They're like, where's our 1997 burrito? Doggone it. Well, here you go. And it's understandable why, because pulling albums for this list, it was a pretty monster year for top-notch heavy metal albums. There's a lot of albums that have really endured the test of time and become staples in their genres. And by genres, I mean black metal, because this is very much a black metal year for sure.
Believe me, Metal Hillbilly, I checked. First thing I did was check which Halloween album came out in 97. They were on tour that year.
No.
This is Time of the Oath era. So, yeah, sorry.
Yep.
But
we were in their comeback phase, but did not have a new release.
We have others that filled in very nicely for it, though, but we'll get there.
We do.
Roger, what the hell were you doing in 1997?
I was working and we were going to a lot of gigs at that time. I remember we we mostly spent all our money on metal. It was either buying CDs or going to gigs. There was a lot of good gigs at that time, for our, countrymen. There was always something going on that front. So,
So for you to go to a gig, you're going to Bergen. Or were you having, or Oslo?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the two ones. And, back then it was like it took us about like 6 hours to get to Bergen at that time. Now it's like 3.5 hours because the road net was not fantastic. Wasn't fantastic. And
I thought you guys were drunk and forgot where you were going.
So same with Oslo. The roads have been improving a lot. So like we were on the Djevel tribute gig now a couple of weeks ago, and it was like 6.5 hour drive to Oslo, and that was close to what we used to drive to Bergen. So it's getting better now to get to gigs, but now we're too lazy and comfortable in our own homes.
And old and comfortable, yes,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. That's awful late. I don't want to stay up so late. Yeah.
Yep. I don't like the look of those teenagers in the mosh pit.
No, exactly. Yeah. They don't know how to behave.
True.
They just stand there and kind of sway back and forth. In my day, I'd have thrown an elbow in their mouth.
Yeah.
Well, I think we have a lot to go over, so why don't you get us rolling here? Yeah,
well, I can start with a little bit evil fold out cover art from Sweden's Abyssus. This is a normal booklet, but it's kind of, there was several other bands who did the same thing. And this is kind of very stereotypical Swedish melodic, black metal. It's not like fantastic, but it's, enjoyable. It's kind of like 4 out of 6 black metal in that time period. They had a lot of competition as well. So, it wasn't easy for Swedish or any bands really to get into the kind of wave that the Norwegian wave was gradually kind of dipping starting to dip in 97, but we were always beating the Swedes anyway. So
it's funny, you're connected country wise and in a lot of things, but it's amazing how the Swedes didn't sound like the Norwegians. Always, they had their own sound.
Big difference. They were way more melodic than we are in general. So I don't know why, but maybe it's Abba's faults.
Oops, sorry. Thanks, Lee. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you, Lee.
All right. Good start. Alan, 1997, what were you doing? You're probably studying something somewhere. Going to college, moving.
Yep. 97, I spent a lot of time out in the middle of the desert digging up dinosaur bones. I was working on that, for graduate work. So, we would, whenever, schedules permitted, we'd end up, just doing primitive camping out in the desert down along kind of the Texas-Mexico border. Dig a hole to crap in, set up a tent, and, you'd get up at like 6 or 7 in the morning, dig until the temperature hit about 110 in the early afternoon. And then you would just, angle the van to create as much shade as you could. Everybody would, squeeze into the, shadow of the van, and you sat there and drank beer until about 9 o'clock and fell asleep. So it was a pretty good year. In terms of metal, being in Texas, there wasn't a lot of connection to new releases. So I was doing a lot of tape trading. This was also, kind of very nascent version of the internet. People were starting to post tape trading lists online, like GeoCities sites, places like that. So I was getting into a lot more of that. So a lot of the stuff that came out around this time, I was first hearing via tape trading, and then special ordering CDs, picking things up when I had a chance, when I found ones, that I really liked through the tape trading network. But as we said, it was very much a black metal year. Other genres had some good releases too. We'll show some examples of those. But Metal Hellbilly mentioned it right away in the chat tonight. It was the year he discovered black metal. And I think it was a year a ton of people really discovered black metal, because even though it had been around for several years, you'd already had a lot of the major drama play itself out with the Norwegian scene. This was the year some of the big key bands came back. and ended up releasing what became watershed releases, or releases that put them back at the front of the pack. And we'll see examples of those as we go tonight. But oh, wait a second, Marty.
Yeah,
we're receiving a report. There are reports that the recently deceased are coming back to life and seeking human victims. So we're going to have to start this particular year with Deceased's Fearless Undead Machines. For me, this was one of the huge releases of 97. Deceased, of course, had been around for quite a while. They'd already done 2 albums. I had heard both those albums. I liked Luck of the Corpse. It's got a great primitive charm that's held up really well. I did not like Blueprints for Madness. The production on that album, I still think, is a real knock against it. It's always kept me from getting into it much. It shows some cool ideas, but you can't hear them. It just doesn't, the sound on it's just not that great. So when I heard Deceased was going to come out with a 3rd album, I really wasn't that enthusiastic about it, to be honest. But I kept seeing advertisements for it. Relapse was putting out big ads, like, half-page ads, full-page ads in Metal Maniacs, with the zombie artwork here. And it just looked so damn cool. I was like, you know what? When I get the chance, I am going to check that out, just because it seems really interesting. And it was one of those albums that when I hit the play button, within just like, the first 10 seconds or so of the music, you have that, really kind of fast, noodly guitar line, just instantly hooked. I'm like, oh crap, this is going to be good. And it absolutely is. This is the album where King and company really found their voice. And, they just refined it moving forward. All the albums after it are great too. But this is the transition album. This is where they finally figure out how they're going to balance all their different influences and make it into the sound that becomes classic Deceased. So long concept album based on a lot of, the Romero zombie movies, but, with their own story going on as well. They kind of incorporate a lot of different classic zombie elements, between science and psychic powers and just all kinds of crazy stuff going on in the lyrics. Still holds up extremely well. And yeah, it's been reissued. There's some reissues that have really good liner notes from King talking about the album's recording and such. If you've never checked out Deceased, I don't know what's wrong with you, but Fearless Undead Machines is a great place to start, and just work your way through the catalog from there. You can go back and check out the earlier, more primitive stuff too. Again, a lot of people like Blueprints. It just doesn't click for me, but I do like the earlier stuff like 13 Frightened Souls and Luck of the Corpse. Those are great, just a different kind of flavor of death metal. But yes, we'll talk about plenty of black metal tonight. But I did want to start with something that was not black metal. That was one of the big releases for me in 97, and that would be Fearless Undead Machines. So, Marty, what do you want to kick things off with?
Well, I'll be Captain Obvious, but for the main reason that this album completely blew my mind, I'm fairly certain it was my favorite of the year, but I couldn't stop listening to it, and that would be Anthems to the Welkin at Dusk. Man,
I always talk about it. Yep.
Never loved this cover. It's very dark and murky and just kind of, I don't know. Never been a big fan of the cover art, but the album itself, I mean, in hindsight, as the years go on, I always find myself going back to In the Night Side Eclipse. I prefer that album. Mm-hmm. It's a little less dense. It still clings a bit to the cult necro black metal spirit, mixed with, of course, the symphonic elements here. The prog is kind of working its way in, but the songs are just so much more complex. And the fact that when I interviewed him during this time on the phone, he was just going on how some of these songs had like 15 synth layers. He's like, it's just easy for me to hear it and layer all these things on there. And the album shows. I mean, it feels like you're just falling down this symphonic chasm, but it's dark and the songs are really super interesting, but that's not so complex that it's pushes you away. It's very symphonic and very triumphant at times. I'm not gonna go through the track listing. I think everybody in here has probably heard this record forever and ever and ever, but when this thing landed and I wrapped my head around it, I just couldn't believe how gifted, just very mature. That's another word we'll throw out there. Mature, very
Yeah.
gifted. And to know that, you know, In the Night Side Eclipse was essentially material written by 16-year-olds, hearing how far ahead of the curve they were early on, and then to hear how quickly they advanced on this record, pretty mind-blowing. And you know, you listen to the songs over and over and over again, they're just so good, they're just so well done, especially, you know, stupid little things. And like in String I Burn, there's a key change in there that just every time that key change, where the wolf is no longer free line comes in, that shift and feel of the song is just, every time, even now listening to it, I still get the goosebumps. It's just such advanced, superior songwriting. So yeah, that was my 1997 right there in a nutshell, that album. I listened to a lot of other killer shit, but that was never far from the CD player.
Yeah. No, that was, one of the defining albums from the year. Roger, your thoughts on anthems?
Oh yeah, I'm still always gonna be a Nightside guy, but you know, it's a killer album, and they in a way maintain the kind of aggressivity compared to a lot of the other symphonic black metal albums. You know, they still manage to sound pretty evil, even though they incorporated a lot of the grandiose instruments. So it's a killer album, and one that will, you know, stand the test of time always. So
Yeah.
What about you, Alan? What'd you think of that one? We can go around the horn on this one because it's
worth everyone chiming in on. Yeah, it's a great album. It deserves the praise it gets. Like you, I prefer Nightside, always have, over it. A sticking point for me with this album, and it's just a personal bias, it's not fair against the album. This album got so hyped that year that I very quickly got sick of hearing people gush about it. And that made me kind of push back and kind of, you know, hold it at arm's distance a little bit more. If you were on, you know, early chat forums or email chains or stuff, reading reviews, everybody was just tripping over themselves to call this like the album of the decade. And it got old very fast hearing everybody, you know, basically just, you know, give Emperor a hand job every time you read another sentence. Yes, it's a great album. It's not a perfect album. I do think there's too many synth layers, that it gets a little bit buried in all of that. You kind of have to listen through those layers sometimes to hear the other stuff that's going on. It's still, a top-notch album. I'm not going to take anything away from it. But it's not my favorite Emperor album. And it started this chain of, you know, several years through the rest of the late 90s where just everybody acted like, you know, Emperor walked on water, could do no wrong. Every single note they farted out was worth enshrining in heavy metal Hall of Fame. And that just always a bit irked me. I always react negatively when people listen to something like 3 times and then declare it 100%, 10 out of 10, album of the year, best thing ever recorded, you know, onto a wax cylinder. The contrarian in me doesn't like that. And so, again, it's nothing against the album. It's not the album's fault. It's just something that always did irritate me about this particular release. It was, I think, for a lot of people, their introduction to Emperor. Yeah. This was Emperor coming back. You'd had Nightside and the earlier stuff, of course. But again, then you got into all the Norwegian mischief. Members went to jail. There's a gap there where people didn't know if Emperor would release more stuff. Are you going to get new members? Are you going to carry on the project? Are you going to go in different directions? And Emperor's not the only band we'll talk about tonight that had that particular situation to deal with. But yeah, Emperor, you know, they were played up a ton in the fanzines as, you know, return of Norwegian legends and such. People were really making it out like this album could not be less than perfect before they even heard it. And that always stuck in my craw some. But no, it's a fantastic album. It's just a bias I have about the circumstances regarding the album when it came out and how people got so fanboyish so quickly over it. Yeah,
I'm still that way.
it's
Everybody
me.
ranting how great something is. I don't even want to fucking hear it, to be honest.
Yeah,
I just don't want to hear it.
Oh,
Fuck it,
yeah. I
don't
know
care.
you've had that reaction to albums too, and I do sometimes still as well. But yeah,
Still
this
do.
one, I mean, like even 2 years later, I'd be on forums with people, and they'd just be like, "Oh man, Emperor, dude, it's like you don't understand, like the chord progressions for this 3 seconds of bass solo, 6 minutes into track 8, and just like, shut the fuck up and go away. Just I've listened to you. You've been ejaculating all over yourself for 2 years about this now. We get it. You like Emperor. Move on." So that's my history with anthems.
You have a nice sweater collection and probably a stuffed raven in your house somewhere. Cool. All right. Roger, what's up for 97? What's next?
I'm going to the Czech Republic with Avenger. It's Shadows of the Damned, out on the very known label Breath of Night Records. So really good debut album.
Akhenaten from Judas Iscariot's label. Andrew.
Okay,
yeah.
So it's like a little bit death metal in it, but it is black metal, especially like vocals and faster, tremolo picking. But really good band in general. They changed name now, but they released 5 or 6 really good. I would say black metal with some like heavier guitar tone maybe, and some more deathy riffs. But I'm a big fan of this band, and all their albums are really good. So worth checking out if you haven't.
He's always impressive, Mark.
I gave Mark something new for the evening. Your holiday gift, Mark.
Yeah.
Let's see. All right.
All the years of schooling is paying off, Alan.
The Avengers are a cool pick, Roger. I have not heard that in forever.
Yeah.
All right.
Been a long time.
Let's talk about another one of the huge black metal albums that came out in 97. And this was another one, I think, that drew a ton of people into black metal for the first time, or at least really helped popularize the genre, quote unquote. Even has the same color scheme as the Anthems album. We all know where this is going now, I believe. Dimmu Borgir released their third album, Enthroned Darkness Triumphant. And
Hat trick.
You have the whole, you have the symphonic element again coming to the front here. Like Roger said in the start, the first salvo of Norwegian black metal felt like maybe it had done its thing. And so in 97, you have the bands moving on to this more symphonic stage. Emperor's doing it in this kind of very high-minded, classically influenced, savant level work. Dimmu Borgir's doing it in a way that a lot of folks are going to find more accessible. I'm not saying that in a negative way, but this was an album that was much easier to sort of digest and quote unquote get for people who were interested in checking out black metal, but maybe didn't have the patience to sit through all the intricacies of Anthems to the Welkin at Dusk. But yeah, this album was a huge hit that year. Everybody had this album. It was another one that was talked up a ton and then got people digging for their previous albums. I had heard some other stuff by the band before this one came out, again through tape trading. I liked this album a lot when it came out. This one has not aged well for me. I can go back and listen to it from time to time, but it's the kind of thing I play one time, like, yep, still sounds like I remember it, and it goes right back on the shelf and is not going to come back off for a couple more years. As you can see, I don't even own a physical copy of it anymore, so just pulled it up on Metal Archives to make the point. But I always did think it was funny that it had the same color scheme as Anthems. They're both trying to do different versions of the melodic black metal and pushing the genre to a lot more popularity. A lot more people got into this wave or this sort of new iteration of Norwegian black metal. But something like Dimmu Borgir obviously wore out its welcome with a lot of fans pretty quickly too. There were folks that liked him a lot, and there were folks that felt like they didn't necessarily offer a whole lot long term. After this album, I never kept up with the band. I checked out the next couple of albums when they released, was not interested, did not buy them, and quickly just kind of left them behind. But for this one album, at least for this 1 year, they were right there at kind of the top of the black metal popularity. So good for them. They made a long career out of it. Even if you're not into it, it worked out well for the band long term. But Enthroned Darkness Triumphant, whether you like it or not, it was one of the defining black metal releases of '97 that everybody could not stop talking about, whether they loved it or whether they hated it.
I think it's a good record. I still think it's a good record. I did like Death Called Armageddon. I think that was the last one I really gave a shit about. But yeah, you're right. I don't revisit this one much. When I do, I like it. But Stormblast is usually the one. That one just has the vibe, the right vibe for me, anyway.
Mm. I revisited Stormblast recently, and to be honest, even that one left me a tad cold. I was just like, again, it was okay, but played it once and was quickly decided don't need to play it twice right now. Yeah, Logan, you are correct. My top hat quota is not as full as those guys, but I'm okay with that. I've made my peace.
I think Metallurgy people all need to pitch in and get Alan some leather pants for Christmas. That'd be good. All right. I guess I am next. People are talking about it in the chat and I pulled it, so we'll throw it out there. Misery Index by Esuk or Asuk. The umlauts. I don't know. Throw it off. But this one, man, this is such a fierce, awesome grind album. If it wasn't for Terrorizer's World Downfall, this might be my favorite. But this is right up there, and it's got a really deathly heavy production. I think Scott Burns had something to do with this one. It was either this or Annie Capital. I think it was this one. But it sounds fantastic. The songs are short, but the riffs are just super sinister. It's funny to see them. I had a couple bootlegs of them playing live and video trades, and the drummer had a snare sat really low, so it looked like he's playing on a toy kit. It's just weird how he had his drum kit set up. That is completely minor. The album rips. Completely awesome grind. I can't remember where these guys are from. I don't think it's Florida. Maybe it is Florida. Let me look.
I don't know offhand. Roger, do you know?
No.
Yep, St. Petersburg. They're from St. Petersburg, Florida. And to make sure Misery's Index, I want to make sure that it was recorded 96 at Morrisound. So yeah, this is the one that had Scott Burns involved in it. So absolutely crushing grindcore. If they only put out 2 records, Annie Capital and Misery Index, it's a shame because they could have. This is like the US version of Nazem, I guess you could say. But
okay.
Killer band. If you've never heard that album, check it out. Roger.
Well, we can go to Sweden and death metal, and my kind of hate for drum machines are gonna get some. It's gonna get some hate this evening. So if you love drum machines, just cover your ears. But Centinex Reflection, a band that had a couple of drum machine albums. This is actually kind of a little bit black metal-ish album as well, and the drums are terrible. I did pick a couple of really not good albums to show us, well, because we do have some crap in our bottom. Melanie loves it, yeah, but that's okay. But I think it's a decent album, but it's more blackened tinge to it, and of course, you need to have proper drums. You have to play the drums, not program them. So
sometimes you just don't have the access, though. Of course, in Sweden, you should have access to 1 million fucking drummers.
Yeah, but they had drummer was the album after, or it was only 2 albums. I think they had drum machine, but I don't know. there was a lot of bands who tried out drum machines at that time, so I think it was a kind of somebody wanted to do it, and I do have several like drum machine going on here, so I don't think it was lack of drummers. I just think it was a little bit, I don't know, saving some money or just want to do something different, and not in a good way.
Easier to record, probably cheaper in the studio.
Yeah.
I see. I don't have to. You did it for me. Thanks, Simon. All right, Alan.
All right. I mentioned
Alan he ups you his limbic art. Raises the ante.
Mentioned a few minutes ago that Emperor wasn't the only sort of big Norwegian titan that had to come out of temporary hibernation there through the mid 90s. The other one that resurfaces in 97 and puts themselves right back at the front of the black metal movement, in my opinion at least, was Mayhem. And they come back with this EP, Wolfslayer Abyss. And it's a personal favorite, not just in the Mayhem catalog, but in the Norwegian black metal pantheon. I think this is one of the most evil sounding releases that ever came out of the country.
Pretty cold.
Very cold sound to it. Obviously, the lineup's been seriously revamped. You went through a period there. Mayhem could very easily have never done anything else. After Euronymous was killed, they finally got Day Mysteries released. They made their statement. Hellhammer could have gone on and done other projects, but no, they cobble things back together with a very good lineup that takes Mayhem to a new level. This album, again, it just doesn't try to revisit Day Mysteries, which they could have done that pretty easily too. Been like, okay, folks know what we are. The last album's already kind of a cult favorite. Just remake it. But they don't. They really start pushing the envelope forward. And again, in 97, we've already talked about the fact that bands like Dimmu Borgir are popularizing black metal. They're making it relatively more accessible for a wider audience. Mayhem's not interested in doing that. They are going to make it colder and more militant and more martial and lead in new horizons. And I fucking love it. I revisited this EP just last month, I believe, and it still just sounds absolutely ferocious. Everything on here, even just the opening to it, where they're repeating in peaceful time, militant men in peaceful times attack themselves. The outro track that kind of foreshadows and connects into what would happen with Grand Declaration of War a couple of years later. Controversial album. Personally, I love it. I think it's fantastic. But this EP, is Mayhem at their most vile, their most vicious, their most lethal sounding. So between Emperor returning triumphantly, Mayhem returning with a monster release, it's not just the Dimmu Borgirs of the world that are really helping shape black metal in 97. These bands that had already kind of gotten the thing up and running are saying that we are not out of gas. We are going to be a presence and a force to deal with. And all these newer bands can do their thing too, I guess. But they're still going to have to try to catch up to the masters. So Wolfslayer Abyss, highlight release, even though it's only an EP. Wanted to mention it very early tonight.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm sticking in Norway just because this album is so fucking amazing. Contreras, Beyond the Wandering Moon. God damn it. This is one of those bands that it seems like has had a bit of revisionist history. People nowadays think it's really good. I don't remember people talking about this back in the day. I just don't. I don't remember it at all. I think they were so ultimately overshadowed by everything else that was going on. God, looking at this pressing, this is an old Hammerheart Records pressing, and it is so pixelated. Even the logo and the text is just pixelated. You can tell they blew it up from the CD, basically. But God, I just love the songwriting on this. It's very. Oh, here we go. Roger is going to set us straight. Yep, awesome.
Very cool.
What did it come out on over there? What is it on Hammerheart as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I don't know what. I hope yours doesn't look so pixelated and shitty, but this does.
no, I mean it's pretty good. I'm sure they just blew up the picture,
Yeah.
for it because this is the original Digipack.
Yeah.
So yeah, but awesome album.
The songwriting on this thing, and they have. Okay. I always said the Norwegian bolt thrower because it's very mid paced. There's a flow to it, but we put up me and Kellen got in a big argument. What I call it, kind of deathish, dark metalish. And Kellen was more black metal, and the people of the show watch the show. We put up a poll and they said black metal. Just because Aries was wearing black or corpse paint, it's not black metal to me. It never is going to be. Dark metal. I can live with that. That's fine. Yeah. But there's just a density, a heaviness to the guitars that it presents itself as death metal to me. Yeah. But the songwriting on here is just absolutely fantastic too. There's some speed in here once in a while, but it's so calculated and put in the perfect place. Just when you need it the most, it comes in, but it never goes off the rails. It's just so well written. Like I said, there's a flow, there's a groove to this thing. There's an atmosphere. The album sounds like the album the cover looks. It's that kind of artwork. It's just everything about it's great. The songwriting's great. God, if you never heard, we did an album club on it and talked about it for an hour and a half. Get it. If you've never heard it, just buy it, blind buy it. The one after it's really good too. Then they start getting a little more brutal, and then they kind of shift into just a very boring American death metal inspired band, and it made them another face in the crowd. Now they're back playing the old style again, and the last two albums, Philosopher and Heathen, both very good albums. We're back on track. Awesome. I was completely satisfied with their return to the past, and they did it well. So, all right, Roger.
Yeah, there was a question, what do I call them? But I've always called them, black and death metal. Back then, even though they call themselves dark metal, they have never been a black metal band themselves in their own mind, even so.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's too heavy, and it's kind of the riffing that they do on a lot of the songs are not in the vein of black metal as. Later on, black metal has been watered out with a lot of styles, but back then it was not a black metal album, like pure black metal. So, I did see them last year. I think it was on Inferno, and they were so fucking brutal.
Really?
Oh, fucking hell. His vocals are even deeper than ever, and when they play those old songs, it was just like... I get goosebumps just thinking about it. It was
lucky. Lucky.
Yeah, it was a fucking killer. So if you get a chance to see them live, do it, because they are really crushed.
Aries, come to Traverse City, Michigan. Make it easy for this old guy.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm going to change style, going to death metal and Denmark. Iniquity with Serandium.
Oh,
this is a killer. It's quite brutal, as a lot of the Danish death metal bands were or still are. They have this brutality in their music, but it's more technical, and this is a really good album. Awesome album that I don't see a lot of people talk about this band, but I think they did 2 or 3 albums, but then disappeared. Maybe it was just the wrong time. They were a little bit too late for the party when it came to death metal. But and this is a really good band, and quality albums by them. So if you haven't checked it out, it's kind of towards brutal death metal, I would say, but it has a lot to do with the kind of normal Danish vocals. It's Danish and Finnish death metal bands had a lot of very deep, sub death metal vocals.
All right.
Yeah, cool pick.
Alan.
Yeah, one of our longtime viewers, Jack Half a Prayer. I don't think he's in the live chat currently, but he recently posted his 100 favorite death metal albums list online. And I believe that album's pretty high up the list, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, it's a great album. It's kind of one that I, especially last 10 years, kind of revisit more frequently because I forgot at the point how good it was, but it's definitely worth checking out if you're into the slightly more brutal side of death metal.
Yep, I think that was what his comment about it. Yeah, it was an extremely brutal album that he had ranked quite high up there. It's a really interesting list. If anyone's interested in checking it out, I'd recommend digging it up and picking through it. Jack's got really good taste, of course, in death metal and other styles too. All right. Well, I will also stay in Norway. We will get to some other non-Norwegian stuff, I promise. But Norway was kind of the center of the heavy metal world in '97. I do think it's only fair we start and cover some of the big things from that year, including my personal favorite album from '97. At least currently, this is a year where my favorite has changed over time. But if asked right now, what's the best album from 1997? I would pick this one, In the Woods, Omnio. In the Woods, always a little bit, different style of black metal band from Norway. They were doing something slightly different than other acts. And especially on this album, they really ventured off in their own direction. And they delivered it gloriously. And this album is one that I'll play it a few times, fall in love with it, put it away. And then the next time I take it out, it's almost like I have forgotten how good it is. And I just fall in love with it all over again. For me, it's
I've never heard that record. I've never heard that record.
You should.
I have Heart of the Ages on CD, and that's the only In the Woods I have.
I think that's the one people are most familiar with. That's the one that definitely sort of leans most into the black metal style. Although even that album, has a lot of other elements. Even the way that album starts with the synth notes kind of repeating has, a very psychedelic, almost Pink Floyd-like effect to it. With Omnio, they leave more of the black metal trappings behind. There's more clean singing and such, but it is a just gorgeously put together album. It's the kind of album that shouldn't work well for me. There's multiple extremely long songs, something I tend to complain about. Not a particularly long track list, very odd song titles. The first track is called 299,796 kilometers per second, which is the speed of light, because of course everybody knows that. It doesn't matter. None of these things are a problem at all. All.
I thought that was pie. Wait a minute.
No, that's blueberry.
Oh.
It all works together gorgeously and is just one of the absolute highlights of late 90s Norwegian heavy metal. The album after this, they take in a different direction as well. And that album has some strong highlights on it also. It's not one I revisit a ton. There's some songs on that album I love, but I don't tend to play the album all the way through. But yeah, this is one of those albums you can put on and just be absolutely blown away at the world they create with sound. In the Woods, Omnio, not the most recognized band. They are currently active again, and they've put out several albums in recent years. I haven't really heard anyone say very much good about those albums. I haven't heard people trash them, but I think fans of the older stuff are disappointed that the newer material isn't more adventurous, and other people just aren't checking the albums out at all. So if you're going to investigate In the Woods, definitely go back to Heart of the Ages is a good place to start, the one Marty mentioned, and then just understand that when you move on to Omnio, you are moving into a different galaxy, but it is a amazing galaxy to explore. Yes, I know Wade. Wade has to. Yeah, Wade's another one that. Yeah, the new stuff, not that great. That seems to be the consensus on it, unfortunately.
Okay, well, I saw this was on the list for '97, and I'm like, I haven't listened to this in a minute. Threw it on. Yep, Diabolical Masquerade, the Phantom Lodge. God damn it! This is Blackheim from Catatonia's black metal project, and it's really good. Did this one have Swano on drums? It might, because I think the first. Yep. Wait, he produced it. Because the first one I think is Drum Machine. Drums and percussions. Nope. Sean C. Bales or Bates. I can't read the font. So there's real drums on this, but it's just really good. It doesn't even sound like Swedish black metal. It's just really good black metal. Blackheim's voice is really sharp, snarled, good vocal style. Musically, there's a bit of symphonic edge to it, but it's not overblown or super flamboyant. It's just very it's service to the song. It adds a little bit of a dimension to these riffs, but the songs are really well done. It's excellently constructed black metal, good atmosphere, but a really good production. It isn't murky or evil or underground. It has a production with a sheen to it, but not is produced by Swano. So there you go. It's going to be at least in the ballpark. The guy had so many miles of tape he ran on these bands in Sweden and Norway over the years. Wow, it's crazy. But yeah, this is one I'm probably going to listen to again after this. I threw it on as I was pulling stuff and like, wow, I'd forgotten how good this is and all the other albums that came out that he done as well. Kind of surprised he hasn't circled back around to this project now that he's out of Catatonia. So I don't know. Maybe it'll happen. But
I always felt like that project had more to offer too. I was always disappointed they didn't do some more material. So yeah,
they put out that weird soundtrack, Death's Design. That collaboration between him and Swano was like 1 million tracks all cut up into like this musical score for some film that never happened or did happen. I don't know if it happened.
I think it was. I want to say it was a made-up film, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, probably.
That it was just a fictitious soundtrack. It was an interesting listen, but I haven't heard that thing in forever.
I don't remember. I remember being impressed by it, but not. It's kind of like when things are so complex and strange, I appreciate it and applaud it for what it is, and the returnability to something like that. It just isn't. There's no songs there really that.
Yeah, exactly.
Call me back. So I should check it out again. Yeah, kind of pretentious. Exactly, Devin.
Yeah.
All right, Roger.
Yeah, well, I'm going to Norway, and definitely my favorite opening track or opening riff of a song for this year. And if I would to do a top 10 list, this album would probably be there when it comes to opening riffs. And that's Twin Obscenities, Where Light Touches None, out on Had Not Found Records. This is, of course, the OG CD and blah, blah, blah. But the riff here is just so fucking good. And the first song is so good that it's almost killing the rest of the album. Even though it's a great album, it's just so, opening with that fantastic riff. It's just mind-blowing. And I can re-listen to that song over and over again. I don't need to listen to the whole album. I tend to kind of just skip back and listen to it again because it's that like orangey grippy. It is black metal, but death heavy in a way. A lot of death metal riffs in it. Yeah. Thank you, John.
Thanks, Misanthropy. Appreciate you.
Yes, thank you very much.
I haven't thought about Twin Obscenity in a while. I got there. I think there's that. What album was that? Their first or second?
That's the first, I think. Yeah.
I think I have a promo of the second one. Good stuff. It was good.
Yeah.
Right. Ellen's turn.
All right. We are going to leave Norway for at least a moment or two. A lot of folks in the chat have been asking for this one, so I think it's time we break it out. We will head over to Italy for the debut album from Rhapsody.
Oh, I got that one too.
Okay. Yeah. Power metal was making a comeback. It had never completely gone away in other territories outside of the United States. In the US, you couldn't have given this stuff away through most of the 1990s. But bands were out there, Blind Guardian, Stratovarius, Running Wild. There were plenty of them still operating in Europe. And by 97, I think you just kind of finally hit a critical mass of newer, younger bands that were able to push through and start to get a foothold in North America and kind of elevate themselves to higher visibility. It wasn't just power metal only for the hardcore underground power metal fans. And Rhapsody was part of that puzzle. the debut album, they come out as a fully realized thing. They're going for this kind of, big fantasy epic tale, something that has become very overdone in the power metal genre over the years. But for a lot of people in 97, it was still kind of a novel thing. It's still kind of cool that, they're going to do this big concept and it's going to be their own fantasy world creation with things running around. It helped that they had, very cool, cover art, dragons and swords and stuff always go over well in heavy metal. But they also had the talent. They had an amazing vocalist, they had an amazing guitarist. So they made this stuff sound extremely good. And alongside some of those other bands I mentioned, Rhapsody would help really reinvigorate this genre. And it's remained extremely popular for over 25 years now. It's not for everybody, of course. Power metal is that genre that you tend to either love or you dismiss it as not even real heavy metal. But they have, a huge fan base. This particular band has had their ups and downs. Unfortunately, there were too many egos in the kitchen, and that's led to a lot of issues. The number of spin-off bands and minor variants, and you've got, Rhapsody, Luca Turilla's Rhapsody, Fabio Leone's Rhapsody, Rhapsody of something or another, the real Rhapsody, Rhapsody of Fire, Rhapsody 2.0, Rhapsody buy one, get one free. It goes on and on and on and gets just stupid. They have some great albums in their catalog. They have some that I think, are maybe just a little too paint by numbers to really stand out. But yeah, Rhapsody 97 is a year where power metal and traditional metal start to come back in vogue, at least within the US. And Rhapsody is part of that equation for sure. So it's a good album. It's held up all this time. It's the only Rhapsody album I have always kept a hard copy of. Others I've gotten, sometimes get rid of, picked up others much later after they came out. But that one I got upon release, and it's always stayed on the shelf. Over to you, Marty.
All right. Well, people are mentioning it. I might as well get out of the way. This is a twofer. Hey, Sunday. Thanks a bunch.
Thank you very much, Sunday.
It's gotta happen. Gotta happen.
Nice.
We're not going to cheap out. We're not going to cheap out with chaps either. We want the full leather pants, something to put his belt, something to put a bullet belt in. Of course, you could do bullet belt with chaps.
Yeah, that would be cool.
That would be living dangerously. Yeah. Now in it's winter. We need the full coverage.
All right. Well, this is a twofer for the reason both German bands. We'll start here. There was no Halloween, but there was Gamma Ray Somewhere Out in Space.
Oh, yes.
And I'm also going to show the debut Iron Savior album, which Kai is also on.
Those two do go together.
They go together for the simple fact that the song Watcher in the Sky is on both albums.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And Kai sings on both of them, and he wrote the song. So we'll go with this one first. I mean, obviously, Kai, after leaving Halloween, started Gamma Ray. And, initially Gamma Ray was off to a rough start. They wrote some cool stuff. They had Ralph Sheepers on vocals. Great singer. But Kai was doing things to be a little leaning into some silliness here and there. Good songs to mix with some goofy songs. But by the time he started singing again on Land of the Free, The Planets Realigned, all the people that loved Walls of Jericho, and before that said, oh, this is the heavy metal we want to hear with Kai Hansen on vocals. But Somewhere Out in Space, 14 songs. It's a really, really good album. Really good speed metal mixed with European power metal. Halloween's in there, of course, since Kai Hansen is Halloween's DNA. And then you've got Iron Savior's debut. You've got Pete. His name is spelled weird. I'm assuming it's Pete. What the hell's his last name? With an S.
Like Silk or something?
Silk or Silk. He was initially slated to be the original Halloween vocalist. Hey, Jedak, thank you so much.
Oh,
appreciate you. Very kind of you. Thank you. Good to see you. Your name doesn't look familiar, but thank you for joining us. It's good to have you here. Enjoy. Hey, Eric. Anyway, he was Pete was supposed to be the original singer for Halloween, which interesting to think how that would have turned out, but it probably would have sounded a bit like Iron Savior. I've got 4 or 5 Iron Savior albums. This is my favorite. It's just so aggressive, really well done, really good songs. I like Pete's voice a lot. He's got a unique singing style. It's not necessarily your traditional power metal wailing. He's got kind of it's a pitched singing style, but he's got a little dirt in his voice. Like he's a power metal singer from the streets of Hamburg, you know.
It's a little stronger voice delivery.
It's a stronger voice, and it gives this music a little bit more weight. Again, it's really well done. At the core of it, there's a little bit of speed metal in there, and that just is kind of the perfect. That's kind of the German thing. That's kind of the Germans really kind of had that idea worked out really well. But yeah, you got 2 really excellent power metal albums from Germany that came out in '97. Somewhere Out in Space by Gamma Ray, which is a freaking classic. We did an album club on it. Go check that out. And yeah, this, if you never heard the debut Iron Savior, I paid a lot of money for this stupid CD within the last 5 years. I'm sick of everybody saying how good it was, and the cheapest I could find it on anything was $30. So fuck me. Anyway, it's worth it though. It's a good album. Check it out.
Yep. Yeah, and that's another. The Gamma Ray in particular is another album that really helped power metal raise its visibility that year, because like you said, Gamma Ray had finally kind of worked out all their inner child issues on the first 3 albums. Land of the Free landed well, but I think folks were still interested to see what they did next, because even Land of the Free does have some different moments on it. They're incorporated really well, but it's not free of some of those crazier 70s prog leaning aspirations. But this album, is really just balls out German power speed metal, like you said. And the song being the same on both albums, my understanding is it was sort of a promotional thing that Kai wanted to really help promote the Iron Savior project. And both albums do have the outer space theme going on. So it was just worked out that they would use the song on the Gamma Ray album as a way to draw attention to the Iron Savior debut coming out, because it was on a much smaller label, if I remember right. And
well, it's on Noise here.
Oh,
this is a Noise? This is a Noise pressing. So
okay, I want to say the original's not on Noise, but I might be wrong.
It probably isn't. It was probably picked up. Probably Kai said, "Hey, pick it up."
Yeah, my copy is on something called FAD Records.
Isn't that a US?
I don't know. I got this when it came out, but it would have been a US. I didn't get it as an import, I don't think. So I'm not sure what FAD is. A division of Modern Music and it's in Studio City, California. You now know what I know.
You got the US pressing then. That's cool.
Yep.
Wish I could have paid a little less money for it.
It was a pain to track down even then. I probably ordered it from Sentinel Steel, but I'm not certain about that. But yes, regardless, another big part of power metal's resurgence in '97. Good call, Marty.
So sorry to take those off your plate there, Roger. It's your turn now.
Yeah. I do think I have a Gamma Ray album, but not my go-to band.
Right on.
Sure.
You're not old enough yet.
No.
It's coming.
Yeah, it's coming. I don't think so. I tried, but it's something that, I don't know. Some bands do click with me, but I mean, it's very rare that power metal in general are something for me. This was mentioned, Vinder Soknar Daler, as a ancient Norwegian type of writing Sogndal, where he is from, so or was from. Very unique sounding black metal. It's a one-man project, but he do have a drummer in the studio, so no program shit here. So he took a lot of inspiration from Psalms, Christian Psalms, and incorporated them into the music. And he also played a lot of different instruments like accordion and stuff like that. This is the kind of a shield, like kind of every county in Norway have this type of shields, and with some like connected to the county. So it's the like personalization of the CD as well. Another Had Not Found release, which did a lot of these. In this period, was a lot of black metal coming out on Had Not Found / Voices of Wonder. So yeah, I prefer, On Tour is a better album. The second one,
Love that. That's my favorite one of his.
yeah. That is, it's a big step up from this album,
Perfect.
but it was
Yeah.
was a cool, different sounding black metal, and
Drum machine
no drummer.
on Arntor.
I
think it's computer. I could be
might
wrong.
be, but yeah, he has a drummer here, so I think it would be weird if he had, but I don't know. I haven't listened to that for a while, so
Let's go to the Oracle and see Arntor lineup. Velfar. Nope, it's just him listed: vocals, guitars, bass, keyboards, accordion. Anyway, yeah, I think that's programmed, but he did a great job. Still very good. Awesome.
So yeah, but it was like, yeah, and it's also kind of Sogndal is a 1 hour drive from my place, so it's kind of the closest like known band that we had back in the days. So
nice.
It was cool.
Okay.
Yeah, on tour, yeah, Steingram, it's same guy who played on this. I was pretty sure it was.
Okay, there we go. Stood corrected. Perfect. All right.
Yeah.
Alan, good pick. I actually forgot to grab that out of the pile.
Yeah, I saw that in the chat, so I could help you out.
Good deal. All right, let's see. Folks have been talking about Australian album in the chat, and I've got a different Australian album that I will show. Really fantastic 97 release that does not get enough love. It is the third album from Alchemist called Spiritech. This one, this band is known to folks, but for the next few albums. After this album, they got picked up and distributed by Relapse in a lot of territories. And those Relapse albums, beginning with like Organism, are still pretty easy to find, very cheap to pick up. There's always copies all over Discogs for like, $5 a piece. But the first 3 albums in their catalog have never been reissued. So they're a real pain in the ass to find and can be kind of expensive. So a huge thank you to Jeff from Mendicant Media, who hooked me up with this copy about a year or so ago. I had heard for years that Spiritech was their best album, but I had never heard it. And I really like the Organism album. So I was like, if it's hard to believe it could be better than that. Oh, it's better than that. It actually is. Spiritech is fantastic. Alchemist have their own sound. They draw in a lot of progressive elements. They incorporate more like native Australian musical things and really weave it into the tapestry of what they're creating. It's not just like, we're going to play some, chunky riffs and then have like a 15-second didgeridoo solo thrown in. No, they really incorporate a lot of tribal rhythms and such throughout the tunes. And it works fantastic. Their vocalist also has just some inhuman shrieks in his vocal repertoire. Really just high-pitched, nails on a chalkboard. How is he making that sound kind of notes the guy can create? And in Spiritech, it's everything you could want in like a progressive death metal album. Very cool songwriting, very trippy, has a psychedelic undercurrent to it for sure. It's the kind of album that you could trance out to for long segments of it. But the songs at the same time are always moving. They're very kinetic. They're always doing something interesting also. So yeah, I've really fallen hard for this album since Jeff sent this to me. Can't thank him enough. I didn't realize it when he sent it to me, but then I started looking online. I was like, oh, geez, that album's actually a real pain to find. So a huge thank you to him for getting me a physical copy of it. If folks have never checked out this band and you like the more adventurous side of death metal, absolutely go back and check out Alchemist. The later albums are good too. It's not like they wimped out or anything. I think they just kind of streamlined the sound a little bit. They find the elements they want to focus on and stick to those. Whereas this album, they're still trying out a lot of different ideas and putting them to excellent use. So can't say enough good things about Alchemist. They were a very early band on the Australian extreme metal scene. They played a big role in helping with there was a series of concerts in Australia for a long time. Metal for the Mind, I want to say. Simon's in the chat. He'll correct me if I'm butchering the name of it. But Alchemist was one of the bands that really helped get that stuff up and running. It was originally like a charity concert and became an annual thing for many years. So yeah, they were a big part of the scene. They're not as well known as some
Metal
of the
for the
other bands.
Brain.
Metal for the Brain. Thank you, Simon. I knew Metal for the Mind didn't sound quite right. But yeah, Alchemist did, a ton of things. They're legendary in that scene, just never quite got their dues. Even though, they had the Relapse distribution, they just never quite caught on, which is a real shame because they are a really unique band with a good catalog. Spiritech, though, somebody please reissue this so that people can obtain copies of it, check it out, and realize just how great it is. It really, really needs to have wider distribution.
All right. Well, before I go back into Germany here, let's get one U.S. band out of the way. Michigan band. Several released albums. Summon put out an album that year, and Lucifer's Hammer, Mists of Time. This is a band I've seen play a bunch over the years, and live they were never really much of a spectacle to look at. They just kind of stood there and played their instruments, whatever. But this album, the production, it's very mid-paced, very much battery worship with a lot of keyboards. Not a lot, but a very atmospheric. It adds a nice atmospheric tone to the album. This is a very good record. This was a very good band. Cool. Mel's heard of them. One of those bands that never really took off, which is kind of a bummer. In fact, Summon went farther than Lucifer's Hammer did. But yeah, Todd, the singer and keyboard player, his mom was Sandy. Metal Mom. She was a big promoter down in southern Michigan. She moved up here and lived up here for a while. Super cool. She always do Michigan Death Fest, and then went to the Michigan International Fest and went back to the Michigan Death Fest. Always very ambitious, bringing a lot of bands all over the place to play in Michigan. Never really huge turnouts, which is always kind of a bummer. But I guess Southern Michigan for you during that era, it took something super special to get people off their couch. But so, Todd's band, Lucifer's Hammer, they always would open up, or they were always on the bill somewhere. And seeing them live was cool, but hearing the album, it was kind of like a different band for me. Not, taking the visual element out of it and listening, it felt like just more of a black metal aligned mid-paced era battery worship, but with more of a black metal spirit and a little bit more atmosphere. So yeah, I was kind of surprised to see this came out. One thing, going through 97, looking at all these stuff and albums, I'm like having like this panic attack of how much time has passed. I'm like, oh my God, I remember this, I remember that. I'm looking through these promos and this and that. I'm like, holy shit, where's the time gone? Had a senior moment there for a second, and they happen more and more often. Anyway, yeah, Lucifer's Hammer. There you go, Roger.
Yeah, I've heard that album actually. I don't have it, but yeah,
it's good.
Yeah, it is. So yeah, going back to Denmark, and if I would have done a top 10 list, this would be top 5 for the year. And this is Saturnus with Paradise Belongs to.
Oh, that's a good album. Yeah,
this is a fantastic album. I really, when this came out, I was really into the slower death metal, Funeral Doom, Death Doom, and this album is just a crushing masterpiece, in my opinion. It's kind of spoken, clean vocals with the deep, juicy growls that he had back then, and yeah, just a awesome album in my opinion. When it comes to Death Doom in the 90s, this is actually a very high on my list when it comes to that type of music. And as I said, probably a thing like I was very much into it. I saw somebody mention esoteric as well. I forgot to pull that, but that type of music was kind of in the late 90s. I was starting to get tired of, symphonic black metal and stuff like that. So I wanted some really dark and doomy, gloomy music, and Saturnus was one of the best to do it at that time, at least.
Well, the main guy, the singer for that band, he left Saturnus and started doing an apocalyptic folk project called Of the Wand and the Moon, which is kind of Death in June worship, but it's very good. I mean, it's kind of a guy in an acoustic guitar, singing kind of monotone, kind of atmospheric. Of the Wand and the Moon was good. I had a handful of their albums. Good stuff. Alan.
Yeah, that's a good pick, Roger.
Yeah, good pick.
Marty, y'all did an album club on that way back a few years ago. I think Ben Brain Smasher picked that one when he was on the show as a guest for quite a while.
I got that album in a used bin long time ago for cheap. I got lucky. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah. After y'all did the album club episode on it, I had to track down a copy. I was not so lucky.
No.
But it was worth it. It's a really cool album. All right. I haven't done a death metal one yet. 97's a weird time for death metal. Sure, there are good death metal albums that came out. A lot of them feel like they're kind of in different peripheral styles of death metal. This is the period when a lot of people were a bit burned out on the quote unquote typical death metal, the Floridian and early Swedish stuff. It obviously came back around, and some of those bands obviously labored on. I think Deicide has an album in 97. I think Serpents of the Light came out in 97. So the bands were still around. But the death metal that was getting more attention was other types of things. For example, the Gothenburg sound was still a big deal. And Dark Tranquillity put out, in my opinion, their best album, The Mind's Eye. I understand most people prefer The Gallery, and that's a fantastic album too. I'm not going to argue that point. It's very, very close. For me, there were just always more standout individual tracks on The Mind's Eye. They are drifting a little bit away from the classic early Gothenburg sound on this one, getting a little cleaner, a little more straightforward, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I think they actually strike a nice balance, that this album stands on its own. It doesn't sound like The Gallery Part 2 or Skydancer Part 3. This is a style of death metal that, while I like it, it can start to run together sometimes. And so I liked the fact that Dark Tranquillity did change from album to album a bit. And this one, wasn't just trying to do exactly what the previous album had. Now, after this, Dark Tranquillity, was picked up by Century Media, bigger exposure, continued to tinker with their sound, but in ways that just didn't really connect with me very well. I bought the next at least 2 albums that came out. But I quickly realized, I'm buying these, I'm playing them for a month, and then I'm forgetting they even exist. So albums like Haven and Projector, it's not that they were bad, but the band was just drifting a little too far away from the sound that I had enjoyed. But The Mind's Eye, this was the sound I loved from this band. This was another one that I first picked up through tape trading around this time. I got a ton of Dark Tranquillity in a big tape trade with somebody and enjoyed all of it, but this was the album that always stood out to me as the highlight of their career. So, I think that's Alchemist was death metal, but again, it's death metal is doing these kind of unusual things in 97. It's not just your straightforward, Obituary and Cannibal Corpse that was the highlight anymore. As we've already said several times, 97 is a black metal year. Death metal would get its second wind, but death metal was playing second fiddle in 97. Marty?
All right. I showed this last week on the What's Been Spinning, and I was surprised how well it's held up. Sacrilege, the 5th season. Good album. You talk about Gothenburg sound. This is it. And I guess what inspired this was album club, we did that horrible Gates of Ishtar album. Not horrible. I'm just trying to get everybody pissed off again, but
you'll succeed.
That lackluster Gates of Ishtar album. And I threw this on, and this is way better production, better harmonies, better screaming. This is just a better, more album with more depth, better songwriting. So yeah, they came out in 97. This is the band's second album. And yeah, the Gothenburg thing was really, I've got some other stuff in here that is, I didn't pick any Eucharist. Sorry, Eric, but I do have some other stuff that fits the mold for sure. But Sacrilege, 5th Season. Good album.
You're getting Devin's dander up on those Gates of Ishtar comments again, Marty.
Yeah. I'm going to Sweden. One band, 2 albums, not same lineup. Edge of Sanity did release 2 albums, Devon, and that's Infernal and Cryptic.
Mm-hmm.
It's a mediocre death metal album.
It's a thing. Both of them are pretty mediocre.
It's a mediocre death metal album. Yeah, I mean, you really don't need any of these. I mean,
Dan was just so done with
even
it
if
at
they
that
took
point.
the 2 best or all the best songs and put it into one album, it still wouldn't be more than a mediocre death metal release. You know, both on Black Mark, of course, and probably the same guy on drums and same guy on guitar, but different vocalists. Very weird. And I mean, Don Swan had no problem with the guys releasing this album, so it was kind of, as he said back in the days, he said like it sounded good for those guys. You know, it was kind of like a little bit like harsh with them, but it's kind of, yeah, it's not good at all. And but yeah, what can you do? It's very weird that they did it, but yeah, I don't know if they had to kind of break free from Don or whatever. It was
He was becoming more and more disillusioned. I've read so many interviews with him. He just hated doing the brutal vocals. He just hated it.
Yeah, he was more into the kind of Nightingale and stuff like that. So
he had Ackerfeld on, Edges on Crimson too, and he just would always want other people to do it, for him.
Yeah, and they said in an interview later on that he felt his voice were going as well, so he didn't have that same he didn't feel comfortable singing death metal anymore. And like the last thing he did was the last Witherscape album.
Those are awesome. I love both of those records.
The first is not so good, but it's good, but it's not. But the second
one rules.
It's fantastic. So if people haven't checked that out and want some more kind of Edge of Sanity type of death metal, go and check out Witherscape.
Yeah,
killer band.
It's like his take on Opeth.
Yeah, in a way, yeah.
Yeah. All right, good pick. Alan.
All right. Let's go back over here to the phone. I had another one pulled up that I don't have a physical copy of. This ended up being a pretty popular release in 97 and helped get this artist's name back on the map. He had been a big deal in the 80s, but he parted way with his band, made some solo albums that were choices. They have their fans. I always thought his first few solo outings were pretty terrible. But, Bruce Dickinson got his groove back with Accident of Birth in 97. Again, albums, Skunkworks only came out a year before this. Things like that and Balls to Picasso, it just felt like Bruce sort of farting around. It's like, okay, I'm done with Maiden. I can do whatever I want. And what do I want to do? I don't know. A little of this, a little of that. Oh, let's do something esoteric. Oh, let's do something proggy. Oh, let's cover something I listened to when I was 10 years old and didn't have pubes yet. Just, all over the place. The albums just never clicked with me. But on this one, kind of like you talked about with Kai and Gamma Ray earlier, got that out of his system, got back to just, doing really solid metal, got, people involved in the project that could put together a good heavy sounding album, and Accident of Birth worked really well. I was really surprised. This was not an album I had any interest in when it came out. If I remember right, my girlfriend at the time bought it for me, and it was like, oh, thanks.
Are you trying to break up with me right now?
check that out, a Bruce Dickinson CD. Wow. I mean, I was nice about it, but it wasn't something I had been looking for. I think I think she found it, just like in the used bin, and like, oh, yep, let's pick that up for him. But it worked out pretty good. It's not one that I have played a lot over the years. I played it a ton for a few years, and gradually it got shelved and just doesn't come back off the list much anymore. But it did help reestablish Bruce's popularity. It's funny because he followed a really similar trajectory to Halford in the 90s. Early 90s, leave one of the biggest metal bands on the planet. Mid 90s, do some projects. Will Be Nice and call Fight, and the other one a project. But then get close to the turn of the century, and they reconnected with their heavy metal identity. Obviously boosted their popularity way over the popularity of the bands they had left, which got the stars to realign and got everybody back where they should have been. And they lived happily ever after. So yeah, Accident of Birth. Bottom line, I don't play this album. It's been years since I played it, but it did hold up well. And it was one of those kind of surprise, like, oh, hey, a solo album that's actually really good. That gets a thumbs up for 97.
Chemical Wedding, the follow-up was even better.
Yes, it was. I think that was a step up too. The one after that, something about flight. That one.
Oh, Tyranny of Souls.
Tyranny of Souls. Right. It's got a song on it about Kitty Hawk. That's what I was thinking of. Tyranny of Souls was maybe a lateral move.
Yeah.
It was still good, but I think by that point, if he wasn't already back in Maiden, it was about to happen. So you kind of got the idea. It's like, okay, let's wrap this thing up because Brucey got bigger fish to fry.
Yeah. All right. Going back to Germany. Saw this on the list. I'm like, this is a good album. I got to pull it. Not a lot of people on YouTube talking about Scanner these days. This is
it's pretty much you.
Pretty much me. This Ball of the Damned album is good. It's a good album. The singer is I moved it because I wanted to remember it. Oh crap. Come on, brain. There it is. Lineup. They had a different vocalist on almost every album, except for there was an album with two of the same. Harridan Lee is the vocalist on here, who was also in Non-Iron. I don't know. But good cover art, good production, good songs, just good German power metal with their own kind of flair. It doesn't sound like everybody else. It's just really well done, really solid. And the main guy's interest in having different singers isn't always panned out well for him. There's an album called Scantropolis, the lady singer on it, and she just does not fit the mold. It just is not a good fit, and it makes that album almost unlistenable. But yeah, this is good. This is a good Scanner. It's still not as good. Hypertrace is the best thing they've ever done. It just is. And I think a lot of people like the one that came after it. All of a sudden I'm drawing
Terminal Earth.
Terminal Earth. Yep.
Dog pees on robots. You're in for some ups and downs.
A little bit more silly. They're trying to get the silly kind of thrashy thing going on at times.
Hey, what if we made Dr. Stein into an album-long sci-fi concept?
Yeah.
Folks will like that, right?
Right.
Dr. Stein's fun, right?
Yeah.
Dr. Stein makes funny robots, pees on little dogs in the street. Whatever. It does have some good songs on it, but the album is a little too dippy for its own good.
But Ball of the Damned, I think, is a better album than Scantropolis. Mental, the other one they did during this time, Mental
Reservation.
Mental Reservation. Also a really good album, but yeah, check out Ball of the Damned.
Yeah.
Not bad.
It's not a bad album. It does have some good tracks on it.
All right, Roger.
Yeah, going back to the green covers, Intestine Ballism from Japan,
cool.
with their Anatomy of the Beast. This is a 2003 reissue on Blackened. Very bare bone booklet. Only commercial for their other releases. So,
buy our comps.
Yeah. So it's kind of, but this is a killer weird band. It's they kind of fluctuate between almost melodic death metal to quite brutal death metal, but the melodic parts are like not so long lasting. It's just like some hints of it here and there, but it works very well, and it's kind of a unique sounding band. They kind of are a little bit all over the place inside the death metal scene, and it works very well. Pretty brutal vocals as well, and yeah, it's really cool band. If you haven't checked them out, I think it's a very like overlooked band for that period of time, and more people should check them out because I think there were 3 albums or something, at least 2, but they're both great.
All right. Ellen.
Okay. Another one of the real tentpole releases for 97 from more of the traditional to power metal side of things was the Hammerfall debut album, Glory to the Brave. Hammerfall is one of those bands that's very easy to make fun of. I've been known to do it myself. Their catalog is kind of hit or miss, and personally for me, there's more misses than hits. But this album is great. It's held up really well over time. And love them or hate them, Hammerfall did, more than any other album that came out in 97, help reestablish traditional heavy metal as a thing to be taken seriously in the United States. Again, other territories, I don't think traditional metal and power metal dropped off so much through the 90s. But in the US, it was a dead horse. Hammerfall comes along with their magic glowy warrior here, and they revitalize that horse. That horse is up and running by the end of 97, and labels who wouldn't have touched a traditional metal band at the start of the year were looking around for acts to sign. This is the album that made that happen. So love them or hate them, if you are a fan of traditional metal or power metal in the United States, you do owe Hammerfall a debt for helping get that stuff popular once again. And it is just a very solid album. They had, a lot of EPs and things that came out around it. And the band took those opportunities to showcase cover songs by a lot of classic bands that were collecting dust by 97. People weren't listening to Storm Witch or Warlord or Omen or things like that. Hammerfall were good ambassadors to shine a light on those things. Who was listening to Pretty Maids in the mid-90s? Not a lot of folks, even though Pretty Maids were still around and making some decent albums. But Hammerfall is the act that got those bands a second life and got this entire genre a second life, at least on this side of the Atlantic. Even by the second album, Legacy of Kings, I got it when it came out. I played it. I wanted to like it. I never really fully got into it. I just felt like the songwriting, that little magic spark, lightning in a bottle, call it what you will. I think it lasted for one album, and after that, you get a band that's good at what they do, but never really hit pure gold again. But they didn't have to. The success that this album saw really allowed lots of other bands to either come back out of obscurity, or they inspired younger musicians to investigate those things and start their own bands. And so, again, alongside Rhapsody and another band we haven't touched on yet, Stratovarius, their releases around this time are the things that made power metal as popular as it became through the early 2000s. So again, love them or hate them, that's fair, but you got to give them credit for what they did, and they did a huge service to traditional heavy metal. Hammerfall.
Right on. And I'm up. Let's see if I can save some of my street cred here. Let's go to Germany. The first Nagelfar with an E album, Hunengrab im Herbst. Nailed it, I'm sure.
I'm not contesting that. You go, Mr. Worm.
This is their debut album, and they haven't really evolved into their full evolution yet. They haven't. By the time you get to the second album, they start getting a bit murkier, a little bit more strange. This here is their take on more or less traditional style black metal. But there's some things here and there that set them a bit apart. They their songwriting and their tone is a little bit different than the style they're trying to uphold a bit. And that's why when you get to their second album, which I can't even begin to pronounce that, that's my favorite of the three. They did three. The third one being Virus West, which is also a great record, but the second one's my favorite. This here, that one, they got a lot more explosive with their structures, the sound. It's a sound that kind of evolved and continued on with
Ruins.
Ruins of Beverast. I got the B in my head. I couldn't figure out the Ruins of Beverast. That's kind of like the full evolved form of what started with Naglfar in my ears anyway. But this is a really good, not often talked about album. Always liked it. I can't remember which was the song that was on the comp. There was a comp I had that had one of the tracks on here. I'm like, holy shit, I need to get this record. This is a great song. And it's all German. I don't know.
Goldie's got the translation of the title, I think, here.
Hellgrave in Autumn. Oh, nice.
Huh. That's a pretty cool title.
According to the band, more of a compilation re-recorded songs from demos and that album. Huh. Well, I like it better on the second album, but this album here, it rules. It's really good. Solid. Their take on more traditional style black metal, they get a little bit crazier. It's a weird gold disc thing. I don't know. Interesting. Check it out. If you've never heard Naglfar, I don't know if this is where you want to start. The second one or Virus West is the two people talk about the most, but this is a cool little artifact to have in the collection for sure. I always enjoyed it. Roger.
Yeah, we were talking about a little bit Catatonia music earlier on. October Tide was another kind of spin-off band, Rain Without End, and this is definitely old Catatonia, style. And why didn't they use the name October Tide for the transition and kept this as a Catatonia album? I don't know, but it's a killer album if you like the first two Catatonia albums. You will like this as well. They changed style a little bit further on, but this is definitely like a album I think was mainly written for Catatonia, but probably didn't fit into their plans. I don't know, but it's a great album.
Yep. Yeah, you're right. It is. You're also right. It feels so very much like a Catatonia album.
Yeah. So it's kind of strange why they didn't kind of take Catatonia and keep that and start a new band with October Tide, since they were changing the style that much. But it's stuff like that happen a lot, in the mid 90s or late 90s. A lot of bands changed style, and not always for the better.
Yep. All right.
That's true.
Alan.
We've made it halfway through the show and haven't mentioned this album, which I'm surprised. And I haven't seen a ton of people bring it up in the chat, which is also surprising. Speaking of bands that tended to change their sound, as Roger just mentioned.
Yeah.
Here we go. Ulver had, of course, established themselves with a very different strain of black metal, doing a lot more sort of, folk-inspired stuff, more melodic stuff. And then they released this. Melodic and folk are not the first adjectives that people will use to describe Ulver's Nattens Madrigal. This was another one that got tons of attention in '97. It was written up a lot because of the crazy lo-fi hissy production on it, and all the rumors about how it had been produced, that the band had got this big advance and taken the money and blown it on cars and suits and cocaine and blackjack and hookers and cigars and everything, and then just dragged their stuff into the middle of the woods to record or something. Great story. I don't know how much of it is or is not true.
It proliferated, whatever the story. That was the rumor. Yeah. That was that's what happened.
That was the rumor that everybody could not stop talking about, and it does sound like it's recorded, on that kind of non-existent budget. Nevertheless, it's an excellent album. And once you listen through, you listen through the production, there's a lot of great stuff there. If this were just a gimmick, If it really had just been oh yeah, ha ha ha, we threw away the money and just made the shittiest album we could, people would have forgotten about it. The album would have just been one of those, momentary memes, blip on the radar, and would have gotten buried and forgotten with time. But it isn't. It's still widely regarded as another one of these real highlights of Norwegian black metal. And that was something that impressed me as we got ready for the show this week. I sometimes forget how many of these really big staple albums came out as late as 97. I tend to think of Nattens Madrigal as like a 95 release. I tend to think Anthems came out, at least a year earlier. But even though the Norwegian scene's already been up and going for quite a while, you're still getting, some of these benchmark albums put out in 97. It's not all Dimmu Borgir and Heket enthroned albums in 97. You are getting bona fide classics along the way too. So this is a big staple one, I think. Anything y'all want to add about Nattens Madrigal?
For me, I got a promo of this when I was writing for stuff back in the day, and I hated it for the first week. I just this is what the fuck? This is hot garbage.
Oh, same
Until
here.
I had to I had to review it or something. So I started listening to it, and once you got through the razor blade storm of that production and into the riffs on this thing are just, the songwriting is amazing. The riffs are completely unique, very melodic, very Norwegian in a different way. And I just I fell in love with the music, and it's Garm's best vocal performance. I think he's just absolutely scathing. It's way better than he was in Borknagar ever. But go ahead, Roger.
Yeah, no, it's a great album, and like the songwriting on this is not dissimilar from the first album.
Yeah,
it's just wrapped into a different soundscape, but the same song structures are there, kind of hidden in and played a little bit more evil. But as far as the kind of rumors go, I do think they blew the money, but I feel that they would have done it anyway in a harsher way, because Ulvar was always about change and doing stuff different anyway. So I don't think they would have had the same production on this album as the first album, because that wouldn't be kind of what Ulvar did. But yeah, I think they did waste the money on garbage, I think. But I don't think there was a lot of cars left from that album. But yeah.
Yep. I take that back, Wade. The first Borknagar album is awesome. He sounds fantastic. He's singing he did on Nattens Madrigal. On that album rules. That's like my favorite Borknagar album. It's so good. After that, though, Olden Domain, he lost me. He sounded so uninspired on that record, to me anyway. But which we could also talk about today. I guess that album was also in 97, wasn't it? I did not pull it.
Olden Domain is a 97 release.
Yeah, I didn't pull it as well. I do only have it on a promo copy, so that's in a big box in a closet. So
yeah. I like that one more than you do, Marty. I don't have a physical copy of it. I didn't pull it up. I might pull it up on the phone if we have time. I've got a huge stack tonight, so I don't think I'm going to get to Olden Domain. Yeah, as just a quick wrap up, heads up for folks. Ulvar does have a new album coming out this year. It is dropping on December 31st. So it's going to be easy to miss. It'll be literally one of the last albums released for 2025. We received a promo of it for Metallurgy. I haven't had a chance to pay much attention to it yet. We actually did, yes, just a couple of days ago. So I haven't given it any time. I can't comment on it. But for fans of Ulvar, you do get a new Ulvar drop. It's only going to be digitally available on December 31st. Physical copies are coming out in early 2026, either January or early February.
Late February, I think was.
Is it late? Okay, thanks, Robert. Yeah, there is a delay on the physical copies, but you'd be able to get it through digital platforms and hear it on New Year's Eve. So they're squeaking it in. Don't publish your best of 2025 videos just yet, folks. There is an Ulvar album that, well, let's be honest, it probably won't make the top 10 of the year.
It won't be a be on the lists.
The last over I listened to was that William Blake Abortion. And I'm like,
Oh,
okay,
I love that album.
I'm
It's a
done
cool
with this album. I'm done with this band. And then it just got worse from there. But
Yeah.
you know, whatever.
Yeah, I lost track of them around the turn of the century. The stuff after William Blake, I didn't connect with. I have heard folks say that the last few albums have actually been quite interesting. I've been meaning to check them out.
I've
just
heard they're
haven't gotten
good.
to it.
Yeah.
I forget the titles, but folks can look them up if they're interested. Actually, no, I'm sorry. They did one last year that is more of an electronica album called Liminal Animals. It's quite good for that style. It's not a heavy album whatsoever, but if you like that kind of quieter electronic, slightly, I'm going to say Depeche Mode because I don't have a better reference point. It's not my genre. But yeah, even Over's album from last year isn't bad. It's just not metal.
Yeah, everybody, I remember when that Perdition City came out, and that it falls under the everybody's saying how amazing this is. I'm not going to check it out.
Perdition City. That's one I want to revisit. I bought it when it came out. I tried to like it. I couldn't connect with it. You know, it was this kind of urban-esque take on whatever style they were performing at the time. It just never sunk in with me. I am going to revisit it though. I've heard some other albums lately that have been making me think like, oh, this is actually reminds me of Perdition City and I like this. So maybe it's time for me to actually dredge that one up and give it another chance.
All right. Well, we'll go to Finland. Always liked this band. Just the first two albums. I don't know if I've gone beyond that, but this is Thy Serpent, Lords of Twilight. Lords of Twilight. This is one of those, I guess you could kind of lump them in with Dimmu Borgir as far as like the mid-pace with keyboard accompaniment, but it's not overblown symphonic. It's just more atmosphere. And they always just had that really kind of true embodiment of the black metal feeling. Whenever I put this and the other one, I can't Forest, the sunlight coming through the trees on the can't remember the goddamn. I think my brain's turning to mush. I think I'm turning to mush, but it just always had the right atmosphere, and it doesn't necessarily sound Finnish. It doesn't sound Northern European. I don't know. It's just a weird. It's hard to place them as a Finnish band, but it's just really good, emotional, black metal, symphonic leanings, good evil vocals. Hell yeah. Always like Thy Serpent. Excellent. Yep. The Christ Crusher, I have a promo of it. I remember not liking it. I might like it now. I don't know. I'd have to dig it out and check it out. But first
I remember it being pretty good. I haven't heard it in ages,
really?
But I remember liking Christ Crusher. It wasn't anything very complex, but it kind of worked.
Yeah. But this rules in Forest of what the fuck is it? Oh, hold on, everybody. This is just a OCD thing. Thy Serpent. Forest of Witchery. I see it was on the tip of my tongue. I guess it isn't. The brain cells aren't completely dead. Roger, you're up. Save me.
Yeah, well, I can stay in Finland with Enochian Crescent with
right on. Yep.
Telok Vovim or whatever.
Shit, I haven't listened to that band in 1,000 years.
Fantastic cover. Mm-hmm. I haven't listened to this in a long time, but I revisited it yesterday, and it was way better than I remember it to be. So, the leads here are more, I wouldn't say heavy metal, but they're kind of lighter. But the music in general is pretty raw and grim vocals and everything. But I really enjoyed revisiting this album. So I'm going to give it a couple more spins before I put it back because, it was surprisingly good. Not surprisingly good artwork, but it looks like a very well hand-drawn cover by somebody in probably the band or something. Out on Woodcut Records.
Yep.
So really cool. And this was kind of like I didn't remember that these guys had an album out. It was just going through them. I saw the spine and like something just. This album is from late 90s. So yeah.
I have not heard that one. I've heard I think the ones that came after it. or maybe before it. I don't know. I'd have to look. I have two
Yeah,
other albums.
Yeah, I do have another one, but I don't remember if that's.
I
previous
don't either. I remember liking them, but I haven't touched them since they came out. So
No, it's been like I haven't listened to that for at least 20 years. So it was kind of cool to get it out, and that's a good thing about these videos. You pull out stuff that you haven't, paid much attention to lately. So
yeah. All right, Alan.
All right. CBN, that's a really good pick. It's in my stack. I don't know if we'll get to it, but yep, yet another good one from 97.
That's a good album.
For this one, this is another bigger release, so I think we should touch on it. Another one of the early Norwegian black metal bands that have stuck around. Did an album in 97. It is Immortals Blizzard Beasts. Now, historically, this has been probably my least favorite or close to least favorite Immortal album. They obviously were going for a much sort of more chaotic sound and
it's hard to wrap your head around that one. I'm kind of with you.
It is. Yes, you and I have always kind of been on the same page. This is just an album that's hard to wrap my head around, especially coming after something like Pure Holocaust, which I love to death.
Sounds sped up.
It does sound sped up. I will say, however, in the past year or so, I've started to come around on this album a little bit. And the thing that kind of finally got me to grok it a little bit was listening to Hunter Ginn and Jeff Wagner over on Radical Research. They did an entire episode on this album. When I saw they did an episode on this album, I'm like, you got to be fucking kidding me. You guys are going to talk about an hour for that weird thing? But they
it's
did.
Still a good album. I just never loved it like I did the other stuff.
I really didn't like it at all. But one of the comparisons they made or things they pointed out was the fact that leading up to this, Immortal had toured in Europe a lot with Morbid Angel. And to their ears, they heard a lot of Morbid Angel rubbing off on Immortal sound around this time. And when they said that, I'm just like, holy crap, that actually makes a lot of sense. And so I went back and replayed this with that filter in place. I'm like, this is Immortal, incorporating a Morbid Angel kind of songwriting approach. It's not jumping to the top of my Immortal list or anything, but a noun that I used to say is just like, I don't care for the way it sounds at all. I get it now. And so, I'm starting to appreciate this one more because I understand what the heck they're doing on it finally. So cheers to the Radical Research crew for pointing that out. Sometimes you just got to look at things from a different perspective for them to make sense. Yeah. And this is a great example of that. So Blizzard Beasts, after this, the band, of course, went in other directions too. They didn't continue to try to just, blast away in this particular style. I don't think it would have had long-term mileage, but for this one album, I'm warming. It's funny to say you're warming up to an Immortal album. That seems like the wrong reaction to have to anything related to Blashik. But this one is starting to click more.
Yeah, but it's kind of a weird production on it.
Very weird.
The lady who produced this album kind of didn't nail it. They were not happy with the production and kind of contemplated on going back and re-record the whole album, but they didn't bother to do it. Mountains of Might is one of my favorite Immortal songs, and that's on this album.
Definitely a standout.
I think that is the best track on the album.
There's a lot of good tracks, but as you said, they toured with a death metal band, and they got way heavier, more kind of riffy style of playing, and they were surely inspired by that tour to make riffs. So it's you have heard that with several other bands. If they tour with, especially such different style of music, you tend to pick up some of what you're living with day-to-day basis. So.
All right. Well, I had to pick this one because I really love this era of this band, and it's a full-length demo. So, Skyforger Semigul's War Chant from Latvia. God damn it, this thing is this in their debut full-length Kaya Pi Solace. Get that. It's just excellent pagan black metal. The guy's voice is just snarled, like he's got like barbed wire in scar tissue like clung to the inside of his throat. It's just awesome. Just the right kind of vibe. Their riffs are really good, really memorable. And since they're from Latvia, they don't really have a stylistic geographical home. I guess they kind of sound, it's just really good pagan black metal that kind of has a sound that always struck me as unique. As they went onward, they started to get a lot more folky. They leaned into that, like on Latvian Rifleman, they started to get a little bit more obtuse in their implementation of folk instruments, and his voice got more shouted and less grovelly.
Yeah.
I like the demo vocals. I like the full length vocals. It's just, so nasty and killer.
Yeah.
But yeah, this Semigul's War Chant demo, it's 7 tracks. This Reef issue on Folter Records has got bonus tracks, so there's like 11 songs on here. For 97, this is a really cool. I'm like, holy! I saw it on a list. I'm like, yep, that's going up, because I listened to the shit out of this when it came out. Well, not when it came out. When I got it later as a promo, when it was reissued. Awesome. I'm glad, Roger, you've heard. If you're familiar with this, then I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's good, and I also dig Latvian Rifleman. I think that is a kind of a unique album as well. So
it is. I just missed the dirt in the vocals.
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit drier and like clearer in a way, more talking in a way. But it's a cool 2 cool releases by a band that's kind of lost their way, for me at least, on their second album. Kind of got a little bit more, I don't know, easy listening in a way.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So one of the first albums that I wanted to pull out was because I remember liking this, but it's French misanthrope with Visionaire.
Never even heard of that or seen that.
Holy Records. It's the owner of Holy Records band. So it's very avant-garde and weird and doesn't sound like anything else, but quite theatrical as well, without getting too kind of without losing the energy. And I was revisiting this album, and it was way better than I expected me to kind of not liking it now. But there's a lot of cool stuff going on here. There are some really weird stuff as well. You get into a middle of a song, comes to like a bossa nova section with some weird rhythms and almost, but French metal, they have never been afraid to do weird stuff. But so this album is very good. They have some albums that are not near as good as this, but it is a mixture of a lot of styles, but quite interesting and kind of great composition. It floats very well, and it's never repetitive or anything. It's just like a little bit of a kind of a movie going on when they're playing the music. So cool album. I don't know if anybody's heard them, but
no.
Yeah.
All right. Good pick, Alan.
All right. This next one is the Kellen pick of the evening. He brought this one to Album Club sometime within the past year. It's a band I had a few songs on compilations by, and I'd always meant to follow up on because they seemed interesting. But yeah, when he brought this one to Album Club, I checked it out and was really blown away by the album. It is death metal from Mexico, Shub Nagurath, with the King-like Celebration, Last Eon on Earth. Oh, this is an amazing album. It's everything I want this style of death metal to sound like.
The Mexican death metal bands just have this cult darkness to them. It's very
They
cool.
really do. You're exactly
Chasm,
right.
Even Cenotaph for brutal death metal, there's a cultness to it.
Cenotaph had it early on, at least, through at least through their first album. The Chasm's got that sound. A lot of the Chilean bands capture that sound quite well.
Yep.
But yeah, this album really connected with me. Not an easy album to find copies of, unfortunately. So thank you, Kellen. I had to dig through a lot of Discogs entries and order this thing from Italy and pay a lot of postage on a CD that was already kind of expensive. But it was worth it. The fact that I jumped through that many hoops to get something, let's face it, we all know I'm a bit of a cheapskate. If it's more than $5 and I can't get it, in a cutout used bin, I pass on it sometimes. But yeah, this one I kept digging until I could get a copy of it. Great, Lovecraftian themed death metal. It's got, great vocal performance. Really cool, interesting guitar lines. The drumming is really good, and it always feels like it's slightly out of phase with the rest of the music. Not in a bad way, just in a way that, again, it always kind of makes you feel a little uneasy. It's got that cult-like atmosphere just oozing from it. At the same time, this doesn't sound like The Chasm, and it doesn't sound exactly like Cenotaph. You would never mistake this album for something by one of those acts. Shub Nagurath were doing their own thing here and just did it amazingly well. This stayed in constant rotation for a solid month after Kellen chose it for that album club episode. I don't always get to check out the album club entries. Wish I could more often. But when I saw I picked this one, I was like, yep, been meaning to follow up on it. Let's do it. And then it was like, oh, curse you, Kellen. I'm going to have to spend a lot of money to get that, because it is an absolutely fantastic album. The band has never released a ton of stuff. There are some other releases. They're also a bit of a pain to track down, so I haven't gotten those yet. But whenever the stars align and things, heave themselves up into the daylight from, the forbidding depths, I'll buy them. Sorry, I was trying to build that up into something epic, and it just didn't get there.
So with that little comment about the album club, you mean to tell me you didn't hunt down Johnny Touch or War Crab afterwards?
I bought two copies of Johnny Touch. It's on my shelf, and I sent a copy to one of you guys.
You did?
I'm not kidding.
You didn't send it to me. You didn't send it to me.
I don't know if I sent it to TJ or Jim, but
TJ already had it on vinyl. He had it on vinyl.
No, that's right, because he
Maybe-
picked it. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'll go find it while you show your next one. I'm not kidding.
Okay. Well, War Crab then. That's definitely not on there. All right. I'm next, I guess. I'm going Norwegian black metal. This is a band that put out a demo, an EP, and one full length before disbanding. And I heard this band first on their EP, which was called, can't remember, Lead Us Into Darkness. And I really, really love that EP. So when Empire of Agony comes out by Demonic, I couldn't wait to snag this copy. And you know what? I don't think this is as good as the EP, but I really like it. I like it. I thought these guys had a good vibe. They're a little bit more brutal at times, but yeah, I don't know. Just the strength of the EP alone made me a little more forgiving on some of the things on here. I mean, they've got 9 songs on here. Roger's covering his face. He must not care for this band.
No, I love the EP. The EP is fantastic. It has the right production, and they sing in Norwegian. This album, for me, I was so disappointed when it came out because the energy wasn't quite there. More English, title, and it kind of lost a little bit of that energy.
You got the Joe Pentagno cover art too. It looks like Pentagno anyway, which is weird.
But I mean, the EP is that is fantastic.
This is not as good as the EP, and I'll throw that out there. But I did listen to it enough to appreciate it. I liked it. In '97, I did spin this quite a bit, and I always felt like the band that just no one really gave a shit about here in the U.S. But yeah, check out the EP for sure. That's definitely good, but this is pretty good too. I don't know if I'd pay a lot of money for it, but I did enjoy it.
Probably not if you bought it back in the days, but
no, I know I didn't. I got it for good price back in the day.
Yeah, and
it was on Necropolis, so yeah, US label.
Well, I'm going to Sweden, and one of the better albums came up with Swedish black metal. Lord Belial's what's the name of this?
Enter the Moonlight Gate.
Yeah.
Yeah, great album.
So out on
Good album.
No Fashion Records.
Yep.
Pretty fancy, colors and everything when they in '97. This was, but
Way better than the Metal Blade Death Records treatment. It's just a shitty. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's kind of
that's it for the
oh,
fucking
that's
US
it, yeah.
pressing.
Yeah, this has a booklet as well, so it's pretty well done. A good step up from I do like the first album, but that was more kind of bare bone and simplistic in a way. This is way kind of heavier and grimmer, and it's just a big step up in quality and a really good album. They are a bit melodic, but they are way more aggressive than some of the other kind of melodic black metal bands that Sweden was mostly known for at this point, So, and between all the Marduk albums that came before and after, and this is a standout album for me when it comes to Swedish black metal.
It's the Swedish sound. It's the Swedish sound. Yeah.
But they managed to kind of get it a bit rougher and tougher on this album compared to the first album. So, but yeah, good band.
Good band indeed. Alan.
Yeah, and Berg saying, the only really great Lord Bell album. Yeah, the ones I checked out, none of the other ones ever really connected either. Like Roger said, the debut's okay, but then this one's great, and then the one after this is kind of back to okay. Yeah, I've got a later pressing, but it does at least fold out and have a booklet with it.
Yeah.
But this is a much later
Floga
edition.
pressing.
Yes, it is the Floga. Yep. And yeah, Marty, Jed, I'm not kidding, man. Johnny Touch, it's right here on the shelf.
There it is.
We can play it right now if you want to.
Okay.
I don't think we'll get a copyright strike.
Probably not.
Anyway, we need an album to show. So many good ones to show. No one's talked about this album. It was a very divisive album for '97. I liked it almost right away, but I understand why other folks didn't. It was a radical change, like Roger said earlier. Bands often change styles in the mid-'90s and not always for the best. It's very debatable whether this was for the best, but I did enjoy Paradise Lost's 1 Second.
I got there. I eventually end up. It's like a soul catchy. You can't not like it.
It really is, yeah. But it is miles away from their, big three Peaceville kind of, origins. It's a dive into a more electronic style of things. It's got those kind of electronic goth overtones to some of the songs. I think the first half of the album in particular, though, is, like you said, Marty, super catchy. The tracks flow together perfectly. They really knew what they were doing with this style. It wasn't just some ham-fisted attempt to incorporate something they heard but didn't fully understand how to work with. They really did put this together pretty well. They would stick with this style for a couple of albums and then move on to other things and then move on to other things. Paradise Lost's a band that, has continued to evolve. And they had a new album this year. That's a pretty good one too. It'll probably be on some people's top 10 lists as people start making those videos here in December. But I also understand why some people thought this was a bridge too far and were not interested in it.
Flowing white shirts and fans blowing hair back live,
Yeah, from a band that, just, a few years earlier had recorded Gothic. The Gothic came out in what, 90, 91? When did Gothic come out?
I would say 92, but
it might be 92. You might be right, Rover. Chat, help us out here. Gothic.
I can look it up real quick here.
91.
91. Okay, so 6 years later, you're doing you're just miles away in terms of style. But it worked for me, even though it ended up being very, very different. Paradise Lost catalog, it has its ups and downs. I don't love every album. It's a catalog we've been talking about doing a deep dive on. Might be something that we'll visit early in 2026 and work through some more of those. There's a few I've never heard to this day, so it'd be interesting to fill in the gaps there a little bit. But yes, Marty, same page as you. I got there pretty fast, and I still enjoy the album.
All right. Hey, Clifford, the vinyl cheapskate. Good to see you, man.
Yeah, welcome aboard, Clifford.
All right. I've been holding off to see if Alan's going to show up, but he's dragging his feet. So, summoning's Dol Guldur.
I knew one of
Second-
us would get to it.
The third album from Summoning, Austria's Summoning, and it's fantastic. It really is. It's I think the one that came after Stronghold I like a little bit better. It's a little bit more lively. But
Fair.
black metal mixed with dungeon synth. They do it really well. They lean into the drum machine and the symphonic parts. It suits this band perfectly. And the whole Middle Earth theme, perfect. Don't know what more to say other than it's a Summoning album. It's so good. It's unique. They were an island by themselves, on an island by themselves as far as the style goes. And nowadays, especially in the dungeon synth world, there's a bunch of bands that try, but Caladan Brood, I will say, Caladan Brood, they nailed it. They nailed it quite effectively. But
I think Jay's calling out your program drum comment from earlier.
I don't have a Roger's the one that hates program drums.
Yes,
I don't.
That's me.
I see them as sometimes a necessary tool, and sometimes, like a Summoning's case, they actually fit with what they're doing. So, kind of like a Marshall industrial type of vibe mixed in with synth, dungeon synth, and of course black metal. So, great band. Not my favorite album in their catalog, but when this came out, I couldn't stop listening to it. So.
Yeah, it's the previous album they'd started to figure out their sound. On Minas Morgul, they got their template worked out. The production on Minas Morgul is still very kind of icy, very thin. This one, Dol Guldur, is where they started to build up, the sound a little bit more. And you're right, they would continue and do better with it, even on Stronghold and such moving forward. But yeah, Dol Guldur, I think, was one that people really started to pay more attention, and they understood the band was going to do something unique and special, and they were rapidly figuring out how to put that sound together.
Yep. Roger.
Yeah, I'm going to Italy, and these guys, Mortuary Drape, with Secret Sudaria. Kind of what I call occult metal, because you can't really put them into, they're not pure black metal, they're a little bit deathy, there's some thrash here, there's some heavy metal stuff going on, but it is kind of evil, extreme metal in a way. Killer album. I really like this album. I played it this week, and it's a really good unique sounding band in general, but this album is very good. If you haven't heard it, you should go and check it out. They had a couple of very good albums back in the days. They have released stuff later on, but it kind of lacks the energy that they had on the earlier albums. But I don't know if you guys know this band at all. But
we covered the first one, the one before this one, I think, on Album Club.
That 13 Night
Toll,
13th
Knell or something. I don't.
Yeah, that's pretty good as well. But this is better, in my opinion. Quite good songwriting, an interesting album, and doesn't sound like anybody else. So that is.
Maybe we did All the Witches Dance. I don't even remember. I thought it was whatever we did. I thought was pretty forgettable. It might have been Secret Sudaria. It might have been. I don't know. There was something about it I didn't like. I tried.
Yeah, it's kind, but I've listened to this. I got it back in the days, and I liked the band very much back in the day. So I played it a lot. So
it was this one. Thank you, Logan.
Well done.
Sometimes I have out of body experiences when we're having something I don't love, and I forget.
It kind of surprised me that you don't like it, but
I didn't hate it. It just seemed very undercooked, very juvenile. They weren't quite there yet in their sound.
Yeah, but that's kind of what I like about them.
I can see the charm aspect of that.
It has a charm to it that it's not as tight and not as, in a way, serious. It's a little bit goofy, but it works for me, anyways. And that's the important thing.
Yep, exactly. All right, Alan.
All right, let's do something from the more progressive side of heavy metal. Watershed album for folks in this particular style. It is Royal Hunt's Paradox. This band, this is album number 4, I think. They've done a ton of albums over the years.
They've never been a band that has good covers, have they?
Not really. Nope. Add them to the long list of metal bands that never had the best cover art. But yeah, this one's it's simple but kind of effective. What they do have are great vocalists. And at this point, they had DC Cooper in the band. This is the second album with him. The first 2 albums are okay. They didn't have Cooper, and they're all right. Not bad. But when Cooper joined the band, it definitely took them to another level. And on this album, all the pieces align perfectly. You have songs that are just mainstays of their catalog. You have Message to God, A Long Way Home. The closing song, It's Over, is just one of the most gorgeous songs in this style. This album really is one of those benchmarks by which all others in this field have to be measured. The band never gets quite enough credit. I think part of it is their stuff has never been given the best distribution in the US. In other territories, maybe they fare much better. They seem to end up on labels that don't often have good US distribution. There's a couple of exceptions to that. The album after this, The Mission, it had Century Media distribution. So yeah, that one was never hard to find. But then they ended up again just on labels that if you wanted them, and even nowadays, if you want the last couple of Royal Hunt albums, you got to pay like $25 and order them as imports. And, even as a longtime fan of the band, it's tough shelling out that much every time they release an album. But Paradox is an absolutely brilliantly composed album. DC Cooper, it's the performance of his life, and he's an amazing vocalist. Cannot recommend the album enough for fans of just traditional metal that's leaning into that progressive metal category. It's not super wanky. It's not Ingwe show off time or anything like that. The band has those capabilities. They're all talented musicians, but it's just incredibly beautiful music. I will listen to this 100 times before listening to like a Dream Theater album that isn't called Images and Words. Much better stuff for me. So yeah, an underappreciated one from '97.
All right, Swedish black metal that doesn't sound like Swedish black metal. Arcanum.
Yep.
With Cost Ogre. I don't know. Shamati, drummer by trade. He was in Grotesque for a hot minute. He's a great instrumentalist, super grim, cool, different kind of vocal style. It's really neat when you look at these old covers where he's all black and white. The mask works here. Okay. Yeah. When you see a picture of him in color, the mask doesn't work. It's booger green, bright booger green, and it just looks like he slapped some Play-Doh on his face. It's bad. Tobias Forga isn't calling him saying, "Hey, help us out with the ghost masks, would you?" Because they're bad. But black and white looks cool, looks grim, looks evil. So this is pan-worshipping black metal from Sweden. It was a one-man project. There's another guy that might have been involved. I can't remember in the demo era. I don't know how, if he continued on throughout the Shamati's catalog or not, but I pretty much like every single Arcanum album. I think there's some that are better than others. But the album of run of the first 3 are really good. This is the second one. I think this is the second one. I might have this mixed up with Campen, which was a 2 CD set, but either way, it's just really good. Pagan-ish. It isn't pagan in a lot of really weird instrumentation. Every once in a while there's a weird, his mom would actually sing on some of the stuff in traditional type of tone or singing style, and there'd be an occasional instrumental weirdness, but The black metal stayed black metal. It just had a good vibe to it, kind of a pagan vibe. But if you've never checked out Arcanum, definitely check them out. It's just one of those kind of forgotten classics.
Yeah.
Broke up for a long time. There was some legal problems with Necropolis Records. When he got it back together, he started putting out records on a regular basis, and it works. They're all really, really strong. So check them out. There's a little bit of a punky vibe in with this shit too, which is I kind of like that mixed in with black metal on occasion if they don't go too far with it. So, yep, Arcanum.
Yeah, great album.
Good stuff.
So yeah, I had that as well. Of course, it's their second album.
Yep.
Or his, it's the right word. So yeah, going to Austria and of course Belfagor with Blut Sabbat. This is a double with the first album. Great blackened death metal. Really has some cool artwork inside as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and a band that I really like. This came with this kind of, because the cover had some almost show some tits, so it had to kind of blackout. But this is a quality band. A lot of killer releases and been consistently good throughout their whole career, in my opinion. Still going strong. So one of the really evil black and death metal albums out there. In '97, there was not a lot of this type of music, but Belfagor did it very well, in my opinion.
All right, Alan.
All right, let's do some weird black metal from Japan. 97 saw the release of Psy's fourth release, Hail Horror Hail.
Still never heard that album.
It's a pretty wild one. Folks have, a few folks in the chat have talked about Arcturus's La Masquerade, something that came out in 97. Yeah, that's, I think, considered like the big avant-garde black metal release of 97. I will take this one over La Masquerade any day. For those who don't know, Psy's albums, they always title them sequentially to begin with the letters S, I, G, and H. So you can kind of always figure out where you're at in the discography. Hail Horror Hail is the first of the H albums. So it's their fourth release. And this is the release that really tells you this band is not going to have many boundaries on what they do. The debut album I like a lot, Scorn Defeat, but it sticks to a pretty traditional, thrash, black metal via thrash metal riffing style. The two that come after that, one of them is an EP, but they did count it as part of the alphabetical listing. They start to tinker with the sound more, but it's really this album where they just really knock down all the doors and throw everything into the mix. You've got dogs barking, you've got flutes, you've got weird instrumentation. It has a very soundtrack-like structure to a lot of the music on here. And as such, it's not the easiest listen. It is an album that takes some time to figure out. It took me some time to figure it out. One thing that always helps Psy is that, for all the avant-garde, cinematic, noir weirdness that they will throw into their compositions, there always is some black metal element that you can get back to. There's always a little bit of just, old school, dirty venom buried in there. So they never have lost that. You still hear it on Psy albums up to this point. And I always appreciate the fact that they did keep that little core present, even while wrapping it in layers of saxophones and vocorders and squishy electronics and whatever the hell else they feel like doing on any given album. One thing that helps this album a lot, in my opinion, is the lead track is the title track, Hail Horror Hail. And this one just rocks out pretty good. It's sounds like, a pretty passable, blackened thrash track by today's standards. It's not until you get past Hail Horror Hail that you start to get into the really weird stuff. So even though this album takes some getting used to, the fact that it has this killer lead track makes it one that you want to come back to. It's like, well, that track really kicks ass, so let me give it another try. And you start to figure out a little bit more. And then you're like, okay, it's still pretty weird, but damn, that lead track is awesome. Let's spin it again, and maybe some more of it will sort itself out. And Size made a career of doing that ever since. A band that, I really like. One of the few bands that I've picked up, their entire discography. A lot of these early albums, Cacophonous had terrible distribution. There's been a lot of problems getting the early albums reissued and readily available. So you sometimes have to, again, track them down and pay more for them, unfortunately. For folks who might be interested, though, I saw something just a couple of days ago that Infidel Art is finally getting a really nice vinyl pressing that should be more widely available. It's been on vinyl before, I'm pretty sure, but I think it was very limited. So if anybody still wants or needs a copy of the previous full-length album, Infidel Art, somebody's putting it back out. I don't remember what label it's showing up on, but folks are trying to get those old classic Psy albums out there for folks at a better price. So Hail Horror Hail, one of the real crazy off-the-wall masterpieces of 97. Doesn't get the attention that the Arcturus album does. I'm not taking anything away from the Arcturus album, but for my money, I'll take the Psy album.
All right. Talking about the Swedish sound, and this band embodies the Swedish sound. In a lot of ways, they're kind of a nondescript Swedish band, but for some reason, I glommed onto them, bought all their records over the years.
I don't know where this is going.
Yeah, where the seasons mark the pass of time by Thy Primordial.
Oh yeah, this fun album.
And this picture, what is that dude doing on the end there? He's like, I don't know.
He's got power metal hands, but black metal face paint.
Is he trying out for what the hell's that band that Alan was in for a minute? Camelot, yeah. Trying out. He's the only guy with short hair. He probably plays keyboards.
Yeah.
What the hell is he doing here? But this is just fast blasting Swedish black metal, but with a lot of melody. It's just not real fantastic, but I always liked the band.
Yeah,
or you can say Helen, I'm sorry.
Oh no, I'm just thinking, my face paint says "fuck me, Jesus," but my hands say "Forest of Unicorns."
Yes.
But,
Roger.
No, it's not a bad album. I haven't heard it in forever, but it's cool.
Yeah, I haven't spun it for a while either, but I was into this band for a hot minute.
Same here.
Yeah, well, I'm going to Germany, and one of the more overlooked death metal bands started out this year with a very sellable cover and logo. It's Disbelief's first album. Terrible packaging. But this band has a very unique sound. This album is not like fantastic in any way, but it's kind of tells you where the band wants to go. It has some thrashy parts in them, but it's more of a dragging death metal sound overall. But they progressed into, they got better and better and refining their sound. Already on like the third album, they were pretty much set, and they kept that sound all the way through to the last album. Then suddenly everybody quit except for the vocalist. So I don't know what happened there. So
Wow.
At
least they didn't leave him at a roadside gas station in the middle of nowhere.
It was not a vitriol situation, but the bass player, who's the main songwriter, he left the band with all the others after recording the last album that came out. Was it last year or the year before? But weird. So I don't know if this band will ever sound the same again. So. But they have a good amount of albums that I don't need more stuff from them. But they have some really killer albums, and they have this very unique sound. It's hard to explain, but it's kind of more of a dragging, churning, heavy death metal type of thing going on. And also the vocalists were singing with Morgoth on their reunion album. So yeah.
These are gonna have to be Timu level leather pants, but we're gonna make it happen. Thank you, Nick on Nick.
Thank you, Nick. Bonus points for the geology pun there. Absolutely. I see what you're doing.
Awesome. All right, Alan.
All right, let's go to Russia for our next one. Another album club alumnus.
We must be doing something right over there on Wednesday night. What's going on?
You're definitely doing something right. Folks love those. I can't remember who picked this album. It feels like it would have been a Kellen pick, but I might be wrong. It is Scald's Will of Gods is
Kellen.
Great Power.
That's
It was
Kellen.
Kellen. Okay, thank you for confirming. This is one of those things that got no attention at the time it was released, but over the years has become one of these sort of cult classics in the field of epic heavy metal. Scald had started out as a very different style of music, but they kind of got the Man-O-War bug and started leaning more into these bigger epic song structures. They remind me a bit of like early Solstice, the UK band, not the Florida death metal band. They have bits of that kind of Lamentations and New Dark Age vibe worked into the music. This thing's been reissued a bunch of different times. And the cover varies depending on what pressing you pick up. This was just kind of a decent 2 CD version that had like some live and demo tracks and all that. The band not only didn't get much attention because they were in Russia, they also their key member was killed in an accident around the time this was released. I forget the exact timeline, if it was like right before it was released or right after, but that obviously pretty much ended the band, although they did put out finally a follow-up. I think it was last year, 2024. It could have been 2023 at this point. And I think may have been when Kellen had picked this one, was kind of in anticipation of the new album getting dropped, which was pretty good. It's one that was very highly anticipated, but a lot of folks were also very nervous about them coming back and trying to follow up on something that had become a minor classic over time. They're like, is it going to really be good? Is this a good idea? It worked out pretty well. It's not the greatest thing ever recorded. It doesn't, blow away the original, but it does it justice. And that's about the best you can hope for from a lot of those kind of reunion projects. Will of Gods is not a perfect album. It has its issues. Marty, I know you had some issues with it on the Album Club show, and they were valid points that you brought up. Again, it was recorded by folks that maybe had more ambition than expertise or know-how at the time they were putting it together. But I think, it's still a cool listen despite its flaws. So Will of God's Great Power. There's some underground epic metal coming out in 97 as well.
All right. Well, I haven't talked about a lot of death metal today, so let's get some of that on here. Blood Red Massacre by Germany's Flesh Crawl. Crushing. This band were always good. They put out some albums that I missed a few, and a couple of them would come out and I'd listen to them a bunch for a week, and then they would kind of hit the rack. But I remember spending a little time with this one and really liking it. They just always had this was recorded by the band and Peter Tegren at the Abyss studio. And it's good sound, good, brutal. Dude's vocals are just really full-throated, nasty. It's just solid German brutal death metal. And I always gravitate more towards the brutal European stuff than I do the traditionally brutal US stuff. So solid, excellent death metal from Germany.
Yeah, they were kind of more into the they sounded more Swedish on this album.
Their debut as well. Their debut was very Swedish sounding.
Yeah, but the two first was kind of more heavier or like doomier in a way. This is more kind of faster and more aggressive style of death metal. But yeah, they had a good run of good albums for sure. Yep. So yeah, I'm gonna pick an album that is very untypical of me, but I still love this album. There's something about these females' vocals that
let me get mine ready. We'll do it at the same time.
Are you ready?
Oh no.
No. Within the Temptations Enter, I have always loved this album. I think she has one of the most like soothing voices when it comes to this Beauty and Beast style. She's a great singer. The band turned into crap. I do like some of the second album, but after that I couldn't care less. But this is a good, like, there are some harsh male vocals as well, but it's for the most part her singing, and it's a very nice lay on the couch and relax album. And not a style that I like anymore, but I was listening to Theater of Tragedy and stuff like that for a period, but that kind of Beauty and Beast stuff is not very good, like, overall. But this album has always kind of kept its place in my so-called metal heart.
Yeah, that's a really cool pick. I would not have thought you would have pulled that one, Roger.
No, but
that's what I like about you. You can definitely surprise with that kind of stuff. And yeah, there's nothing wrong with Early Within Temptation. Yeah, some folks were actually asking about it earlier in the chat. I'm like, I don't know if that one's going to come up tonight, but yeah, there it is. Very cool. And you're right. She is definitely one of the better vocalists in that style.
All right, Alan.
Okay, I will do some death metal here. Tiamat's second album, The Astral Sleep. Or wait, did I grab the wrong one? Something feels wrong here. Is The Astral Sleep 97? That feels late.
Hold on.
Yeah, I'm double checking the date here. I was trying to double check the date, and then Roger said Within Temptation. I was like, ooh, pretty.
Yeah, Astral Sleep is 91.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm supposed to pick a deeper kind
97 is a deeper kind of slumber, yep.
Yeah, my bad. Pulled the wrong one off the shelf. Deeper kind of slumber. We'll just talk about that one instead. Good album. It followed up on the kind of wildly popular Wild Honey. See what I did there? Wild Honey was one of those albums that folks really didn't know how it was going to go over, but it was kind of a surprise hit for the year. And Deeper Kind of Slumber seemed like people were interested in it, but maybe it just didn't quite live up to expectations. I think it's still a very good album overall. It's one of those albums that you do have to really, kind of sit and pay some attention to. It's not as bright as Wild Honey. It doesn't have quite the same level of Pink Floydian prog about it. It is a little somber, maybe a little darker around the edges. I know the guys had a lot of issues, with heroin roughly around that time, so it may have been some of that influence creeping in more to the songwriting. The album cover, is kind of this weird, slightly disturbing, again, like Mortis chewing on gears looking guy. There's a promo version that has different artwork that I think is much better. It looks like a similar character, but it's not zoomed in on the face. It's zoomed back a little bit, and they're like holding like a blue flower. And it's actually a much better cover image. I wish they'd used it for the actual release.
Is it the guy from Thy Primordial dropping some of this on you?
I don't know. His face says Pink Floyd, but his teeth say, "Damn, I should have gotten dental insurance."
Snaggletooth.
But yeah, it was a good Deeper Kind of Slumber. It is, I think, a good follow-up to Wild Honey, taking the band just in a slightly sort of darker, more liminal type direction. So it doesn't always get the best reviews. I've always thought it held up really nicely, though. I'm never quite sure why people didn't like it, except for perhaps it just wasn't Wild Honey Part 2, even though it wasn't that far afield from what they had done on the previous one. So, yep, I'll give A Deeper Kind of Slumber the shout out for 97.
All right, since we're kind of in this mode, Roger showed his lady song. I'll show mine. Nighttime Birds by The
There you go.
Gathering.
Yeah.
Man, this is Annika, her second album with the band, and it's a darker album than Mandelion, and I love this record. It's dark, it's beautiful. 9 songs, you just kind of float along to it. And even the one after this, How to Measure a Planet, that album too is fantastic. But there's a real sweet spot for this band for me. They started off okay. They were kind of just, death doom type of band, little romanticism mixed in with it. Not really remarkable. When they get her in the band, and they became remarkable for me. I don't know much more to say. Her voice is beautiful, and the songwriting on here is very dreamy, very dark. It's a depressing record, I think, anyway. And get it, listen to it. It's beautiful. That's all I can really say about it. Great singer, great songs.
Yeah, really nicely put together album.
Roger.
Yeah, we'll need some death
we gotta get our street cred back on track here.
The final chapter with Hypocrisy.
Okay,
That's turned into not being the final chapter, but
the first intermission of Hypocrisy.
Very bare-boned, booklets, nuclear blasts.
Very bad art too, man.
Yeah, terrible. Everything, photoshopped. These cut out heads on the front. It's so bad, but fantastic album in my opinion. I really like this era of Hypocrisy. A little bit kind of in a way like epic death metal at some points, where they turn into with some synths and like make it a little bit more grandiose. But even the cover song here is good. Evil Invaders is quite good. I had a friend of mine who for a long time thought that it was a Hypocrisy song, but until I had to put him straight and say, it's a Razor song. So great album. And Hypocrisy has always been one of these bands that apart from Catch 22, I pretty much like all their albums.
This just popped up in my Facebook thing. Happy birthday to Dwayne Lazarus. Didn't know and didn't see it. Wait, today.
Oh. Happy birthday, Dwayne.
The 5th. Yeah, today.
Dwayne, I emailed you a few days ago. Yeah, owe me a reply, but not on your birthday.
Right on.
Tomorrow.
Hope you don't break the spanking machine wherever you're at with that number.
That could be taken a couple of different ways, and we're not going to explore any of them.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, let's see. So we'll get back to something a bit more raw, dirty, gritty. We'll go with Wasp, KFD.
That is a good album. I like it a lot.
That's do good. Too. Now this is Blackie. Let's be honest. He's going for a bit of a Marilyn Manson kind of thing here. 9 Inch Nails and such have been popular for the past few years.
That yucky though,
No, it doesn't. It just, you can feel he's going for that kind of vibe, the atmosphere, that he wants it to be that kind of dark and messed up, because that's what had been popular for several years. And by this point, Wasp wasn't popular anymore. It'd been a long time since the Crimson Idol or their heyday in the 80s. So this one it has all the aesthetics of wanting to be something associated with Trent Reznor, for example, but musically it works just fine. No, it doesn't completely stray off the path, and it is Blackie at possibly his angriest, most pissed off and misanthropic. And I always felt those are sort of Blackie's best moments. An angry Blackie makes good music. A happy Blackie sometimes doesn't. And this was a time when he was going through a lot of crap in his personal life. I think there's a divorce, or at least an extremely bad breakup around this time, and it just seethes through the tracks on this. This is meant to be ugly, mad, in your face, don't give a fuck kind of music, and it very much is. It's got weird packaging. Every picture I've seen, it's one of these CDs where it's got the little clip. It's kind of like a digipack, but then it's got this weird clip that holds it closed, and then the You fold it out. And it's got this kind of fold over thing that's slightly serrated on top.
It's not meant for repeated foldings. Trust me. When you got me a copy of this, I'm like, ooh, you got to be very careful with this thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It feels a bit flimsy and disposable. Like a lot of Wasp albums from this era, they've gotten a little hard to find. You have to pay a little bit more for them usually when you come across them. But it's a good period in Wasp's catalog. It's an overlooked period because everybody just wants to play the self-titled album. It's great. We love the self-titled album. I'm not taking anything away from it. I'm just saying there's a lot of other good Wasp albums. You don't have to just keep playing The Last Command the rest of your life. Check out Kill Fuck Die. Check out Unholy Terror. Check out, Dying for the World's even got good stuff on it. Blackie's catalog it's not perfect, but there's a lot of really good albums for casual fans to dig deeper into if they will.
Sorry.
Nope, you are good.
All right. Well, people are asking about it. I was waiting for someone else to show it. Hades, Dawn of the Dying Sun, second album by this sadly overlooked, I think anyway. Yeah. They just finally got this sweet Nuclear War Now repressing. I had the original pressing of this on Full Moon Productions. I still have it. And the mastering's so fucked up on it, you can't listen to it. It cuts out, it goes between speakers. It's weird. But these Yosuke did an amazing job. And well, it's got the Full Moon Productions logo on it here too. I don't know how much John was involved in it, but wow. This is it's a great record. I think my heart lies with the debut.
Yeah.
But this is a great album. It's really fuzzy the way it's produced. It's almost has a bit of a static to it, but man, The Dawn of the Dying Sun, Awakening of Kings, what great songs. This album starts off so strong and it does maintain. I think it's really well done. The debut is it's so fucking, it's right. Everything about it is right. Even though it's, a Norwegian take on Bathory, but fuck, it works so well. It's a great band. And I like the stuff after Millennium Nocturne, Pulse of Decay. They're not as good, but they're still good. They had their own kind of thing going on, and they've not recently, they put out a split with Druk, and kind of threatened to come back, and it just never really happened, never really materialized. So don't know.
No, I talked to Jörn a couple of years ago or last year maybe, and I asked him about new Hades stuff, but I call him Hades, Hades Almighty is not. And he said that no, he wasn't planning on doing it. He wasn't in that kind of mindset anymore. He has a new project that he's kind of pouring his energy into, so it's unlikely. I hope they will kind of do some live shows and play those old albums again. I saw them back in the days, but it's been a while, so it would have been cool if they just toured with them and made some money from it.
Yep. All right.
Well, we can stay in Norway, and one of my favorite Norwegian black metalish bands, it's Kamfar. Mellom skogkledde åser. So
Merciless pressing.
Yeah, okay.
Or malicious, I meant, not merciless, malicious pressing.
Yeah, this is the original CD, so
yeah.
But
killer album.
Yeah, great album, and have a lot of that kind of folky guitar noodling going on. I still prefer, I still think the second album is better than this one, overall, but there are some killer tunes here. And again, as a lot of the Norwegian bands, there was a good variety. There wasn't a lot of copying each other. And but yeah, this band has always and still are killing it, with the releases. They are still doing great albums. So and a great live band as well. If you have a chance to see them, they are well worth checking out live.
Yeah, for sure. And that's another band that kind of suffered from having to they took a break. Was it like a legal shit Something happened. in
Yeah,
the
there
band?
was something, but it wasn't a long break. But they had to kind of sort of some, no, I don't know if it was a record deal or a management stuff, or there was
Yeah.
something bad going on there. But they came back pretty soon. So
Yeah. Great band for sure. Good pick, Alan.
All right, let's do some European death metal. God Dethroned, the Grand
Yep.
Grimoire. Some folks mentioned this one earlier in the chat. So I just hadn't gotten dug down to it. Let's get it out of the case since it's so
another
glaring.
triplet.
Triple hat trick.
Yep. Yeah, this one is just crushingly heavy. But at the same time, it's got a really strong melodic streak through all of it. There's lots of things that you can instantly latch onto. It's not just a savage beating for brutality's sake. There's great riffs throughout this. There's great guitar work throughout it. But yeah, it's at the same time, it's a bludgeoning. The vocal approach is just venomous. He just spits out the lyrics, and tons of great songs on here. This is one of those that got licensed, with Metal Blade at the time, so it had pretty good distribution.
Yep.
And which is, the only reason I knew about it at the time and saw it, thought it looked cool, picked it up. And yeah, especially the first half of this album with things like The Art of Immolation, The Somberness of Winter. There's a lot of absolute top-notch tracks on this. My only complaint with God Dethroned was after this album, stuff got hard to find again. Yeah, Unholy Crusade came out, and I think that was the next one. Or maybe that's the next Lord Belial album.
That's Lord Belial.
That's the Lord Belial one.
Yeah.
All right, what's the follow-up God Dethroned?
There's
album?
Ravenous.
Yeah. I think there's one before Ravenous. I might be wrong.
Yeah.
Bloody
Blasphemy.
Blasphemy.
That's it. Yeah.
Blasphemy, Ravenous, and Into the Lungs of Hell.
And I was so waiting for Bloody Blasphemy to come out. It's like, it's dropped, but where's it at? None of the stores were carrying it. Nobody had it. I eventually got it through tape trading, and it was just like, this is fine. It's okay. They kind of like Lord Belial in a way. That's why those two bands kind of connected in my brain, because they both had their second album come out, got some distribution in the US, sounded massive, and then you couldn't find the third album, and when you did, you were somewhat let down. But yeah, I haven't checked out their more recent albums. The band's always had a good following. I'm pretty sure they're still active doing stuff.
Yeah, they released a new album. Was it this year or last year?
Oh, I don't know.
It was maybe this year, but that's more black metalish than the previous one. But they do have a couple of really good albums in the middle there. So it's I bought all the albums except from the last one, because the previous as well was kind of not as good. So but there are some really good God Dethroned albums out there. So if you find them, you can.
Yeah, it strikes me as a catalog that you probably have to pick and choose through a little bit. But
yeah, it's a little bit uneven, but there's a couple of really good albums there. So but it's like a little bit uneven for sure.
Gotcha. But yeah, I would agree with Eric. Yeah, the album is front loaded. By the time you get to the second half, the songs aren't as memorable, but that first half, it is an absolute skull crusher. It's just relentless. Some of the beats and tempos they lay down. It's almost, to some extent, I want to say it's like a more melodic version of Angel Corpse. It's got that intensity and heaviness, but just with a more melodic streak worked through it. I love the album. Marty, what else have you got? We're getting here late, but we got time for a few more, I think.
Well, people mentioned this in the chat, and I gotta agree. This record rules. It's Strapping Young Lad with City. This is just temper tantrum. It's a sonic temper tantrum, and I love it. Gene Hoglan on drums really brings the precision to Devin's vision, I guess you could say. There's a little bit of an industrial spirit in some of this stuff, but it's just pissed off, taking a swing at everything and everyone, and but never losing sight of melodicism and very catchy songs, even though they're hurled at you with an intent to maim. It's I think a fun record. It's fun to listen to. It's aggressive as shit and very modern sounding. And I don't love every strapping album, but Alien's another good one. What the hell's the other one? I can't remember. There's a couple of them that really stand out, but this one is my favorite of the bunch for sure. Roger, I have to use the bathroom. I'll be right back.
Vital Remains, Forever Underground.
That's a killer album.
Killer album. Had to be mentioned. Just a little bit like scruffy, but really heavy and great vocals, great riffing. Totally a great death metal with brutality, as I say. Had a lot of lineup changes, and this was a band that I would expect had been producing more and being up there. But a lot of changes within the band. They got Glenn Benton on a couple of albums and singing, but like for the potential and songwriting, I'm very surprised that these guys didn't have 10 albums in their discography, because great talent, and they kind of, I don't know, lost their ways, or maybe they're not productive writers. You never know about these bands, but it's kind of surprising when you hear the quality that they didn't do more.
Yeah, I agree. They feel like a band that should have a longer discography.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and so you start to wonder exactly what maybe didn't come together. That
as I said, there might be the changes of vocals, changes of guitarist and all, dynamics in the band, and maybe the main songwriter really isn't a productive guy. That can happen a lot, I think. So it's kind of
Devin says they've apparently been interviewed and had a new album in the can even years ago. Interesting.
Yeah, as I said, I'm surprised they're not more, out there in a way.
Oops, we forgot pull cyanide. Sorry, Scott. Y'all rule though. It's all great. Alan.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's one of the cyanide ones I don't have. All right. Kind of surprised Marty hasn't pulled this one yet, but it's getting late, so it's time to show him if we got him. Sophomore Sacramentum album, The Coming of Chaos. Excellent. Yeah, Swedish black metal, blackened death metal, deathly black metal, wherever you want to put it on that particular spectrum, they fit in great. The debut album gets most of the attention, and that's understandable. It's a fantastic album.
Yeah.
Far Away from the Sun is as close to Dissection as anybody's ever going to get, I think. The other bands come close, but that album really, really nails it.
Even closer than Dissection got on their third album.
Yep. They're even closer than Dissection number 3. Although that's a very different lineup, to be fair. But
stupid album. Anyway.
But yeah, what's not a stupid album is The Coming of Chaos. I'm not sure why this one doesn't come up more, because it's still an extremely solid album. They're still doing everything absolutely fine here. The third album for me is the one where there's a little bit of a drop off. Now, Marty, I think you still like that one. It's got black in the title.
Which one? What I was reading. What?
Oh, sorry. The third Sacramentum album, Thy Black Destiny.
Yeah.
That one for me is where there's a little bit of a drop off. But yeah, I still think The Coming of Chaos is fantastic. Maybe it's just one of those albums that is overshadowed by the debut. It could also be the fact that their stuff has also gotten a bit hard to find over the years. You can't run out and pick these up really cheap in any used bin anymore. They don't turn up. When you find them, they're a little pricey, and maybe people just haven't checked out The Coming of Chaos for that reason. But yes, if you like that, dissection flavor of Swedish blackened death, absolutely don't stop with Far Away from the Sun. Keep going with the Sacramentum catalog.
All right. Poland. Black to the Blind, Vader. This one and De Profundis are my two favorite Vader albums.
Great stuff.
Absolutely. Doc was an amazing drummer. Rest
Yeah.
in peace. And the band really benefited from such precision and speed. And Peter's riffs are just Peter, right? That's his name.
Yeah.
Peter's riffs are just absolutely so catchy. It's just
Yeah.
so a lot of tremolo based picking, speed riffing, very, very good stuff. Just catchy. It's death metal that's super catchy, and hurling along at that breakneck speed, it just seals the deal for me. It was just they really haven't put out a shitty album, and they've always sounded like Vader. But in fact, their debut album, The Ultimate Incantation, sounds the least like Vader than they became.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It sounds like a different band with a different
Yeah.
logo on the top. But I like this era of the band. I like that too, but I prefer that whole era.
Yeah, killer band. It was my next pick, but I'm going to move over to a more severe, overlooked band, in my opinion. That's Mortal Skuld with Surface. This is a quality death metal band that, at least back in the 90s, were never talked about or didn't pop up anywhere. You hardly saw any interviews or anything by these guys where I lived, at least, and still putting out the good stuff as well, but killer death metal from the States. And I don't know if you guys have this album, but
I have the CD of it. I have not listened to it in 1,000 years. Couldn't tell you.
You should revisit it.
It's from Wisconsin, right?
I couldn't tell.
Yeah.
I'm not so.
I'm curious. More to.
Yeah.
Gold. All right. Yep. Milwaukee. They're from Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Yep.
Ellen.
All right. Let's see. Shall we finish this round and then do one more round to wrap up?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking.
I could double them up. I don't have too many left, I guess.
I've got a few that I'll go through quickly next
I
round.
got 50 left, so.
We'll let Roger do the bonus round for what he wants to show.
Absolutely.
All right, this is metal adjacent. It was a thing for 97 that a lot of metalheads would have taken note of. Misfits put out their first album in an incredibly long time, and of course this is post Glenn Danzig Misfits, so right away some people are not on board. Fair enough. I liked this era of Misfits as well. The two albums they did with Graves and Dr. Chud work fine for me. Now I get, yes, it leans, especially after when they did the first round of comeback tours. It was pretty straightforward. It was really awesome. I saw them in Detroit on that tour. They blew the place away. Everyone had a great time. As they kept doing more and more tours around the American Psycho and Famous Monsters era, they were getting a little more and more cartoonish with, the stage makeup and outfits and things. Whatever. I still enjoyed the music. After Graves and Chud left, even I had to step away from the band. I don't enjoy the stuff they've done since then. But American Psycho did most of what you wanted a Misfits album to do. It's short songs. They're super catchy. They pay homage to all kinds of different horror movies and stuff, lots of pulp things. They did draw in songs based on more recent stuff, some bigger titles, Poltergeist and such, that came a little bit after, their initial run had ended. And it still works absolutely fine. One of my big memories for this album was it ended up coming out in, I'm almost certain it came out in May of 1997, when I was out in the middle of the desert digging up dinosaur bones. And so I couldn't get it on the day it released. We got back, to civilization, I don't know, a week or two later. And again, we just did primitive camping. So we hadn't showered in 10 or 12 days, caked in dust and dirt and everything from the field. Basically put my stuff down, washed up. Let me think. 97, I think, is also Phantom Menace came out. Maybe. No, that didn't come out quite then. So never mind on that.
The beginning of the raping of my childhood, you mean?
That's an episode for another time. But basically, as soon as I got myself cleaned up, I went straight over to the record store and bought a copy of American Psycho, this copy. And they ended up coming to that town in Texas and playing on the tour. So that was the second time I saw Misfits live. And we had a blast with it then as well. They did a write-up in the local newspaper for, concert at the warehouse for the Living Dead Misfits. So I clipped it out and have it shoved in the CD booklet here. I understand if some folks just are not into this era. For some folks, it's got to be Glenn. I get that. It's the better Misfits material. I'm not questioning that. I'm just saying these two albums they did in the late 90s were really fun albums if you could get over the absence of Danzig. Over to you, Marty.
All right. A couple Swedish bands here. Defleshed, Under the Blade.
Lots of folks been asking for that one.
Yep, fast, catchy, death metal, good. Necrophobic, Dark Side.
Yep.
This for me is where I was a little bummed. I'm a big Nocturnal Silence guy. I love that record. I think it's the perfect mix of evil death metal as far as Sweden goes. And Dark Side, they started to lean into a bit more of the black metal side. Dave Parland was also in the band Dark Funeral. And I thought the bands were kind of starting to sound a little bit similar, which was a bummer. But still, good album. I spun it a bunch. I think I preferred Secrets of the Black Arts, I think, a little bit more over this one for some reason. But yeah, and I'll do one more here. This is German, talking about the whole Gothenburg thing and how a million bands were sounding, melodic Swedish death metal. Well, he had a melodic Swedish death metal band from Germany, Nightingales, with Towards the Twilight. When this came out, I completely instantly disregarded it as, it's just more The Everdawn, Gates of Ishtar. Years later, digging it out again, it's a good record. I really like it. It stands up a little bit better than some of the other bands from Sweden. So definitely worth checking it out. I ended up getting rid of my original copy and had to get a Metal Mind reissue, but solid. They went on to Thunder something with a guy dressed up with wings on the Thunder Forge. I don't know. Bad. Anyway, this is good. Check it out. Roger.
Yeah, well, of course we have Eld, Enslaved, which is, one of my favorite bands overall. Like Enslaved has always been a quality band. You have Helheim, Norden, which is a step down in production from the first album. Still good songs, but the first album had better songs. But this album has better vocals because the first album had these very high, pitchy, screamy vocals. Of course, Absu, Third Storm of Citral.
Nice. Yep.
It could be mentioned, Septic Flesh, Obsidian Wheel. Great album.
Great record.
In my opinion. Yeah. So kind of a weird deathy, gothic death doom-ish. I don't know what to call them, but they had a long string of great albums back then. Had also to pull this after seeing the last video Ben was talking about. Bloodthorn, and the vocalist here is now singing in Bodom Rife, if you wanted to know that, and he's not very proud of the Bloodthorn project.
Really?
Nah, he's slightly embarrassed about it, but why? It's quite good. So
it's good. Yeah.
So
not evil enough. Oh,
no, it's not evil enough. That's probably the why. Anthrol, which is a great overlooked Norwegian black metal project, Prophecy of the Dying. Really good album. This band could have done better, but the production was always a little bit murky. Kind of really nailed the production. So it's kind of, you should mention Covenant's first album.
That's a good
Mhm.
album. That's the only one
Yeah.
I care about by that band.
Yeah.
That's
So,
the only one anybody cares about by that band.
No, the second one with Hellhammer on drums, they like.
Nexus Polaris is
Yeah.
the biggest.
It
That's the hit.
was big, but it
Yeah.
was not good.
I didn't like
Yeah.
it. I didn't
No.
like it.
Even outsold Dimmu Borgir at that time.
Mhm.
So
No, no,
Really?
that's fair. It was
Yeah.
it was a big album, but it was not a good album.
so yeah, and of course we can mention Obituary, D-Side, and a lot of other bands. But I want to end on a fucking shitty album, just to. And I read a review, and blind bought this piece of crap, and the band name, the logo, everything looks bad, and that is Anti-Crisis.
Never even heard of it.
No, this I think it's a German project. Tries to be like a gothic, progressive death doom band. Has some female vocals, which is terrible, and the clean male vocals are not good, and the harsh vocals are not good. There's actually nothing good on this album, and it would be in my bottom 100 in my collection easily.
Your bottom million of your. Yeah.
So yeah, I still have more to show, but I had a question, because Metal Archives list this as a 97 album, but it's printed 96 on the backside of the Modern Invasion.
Huh.
So I always looked at this as a 96 album, but Metal Archives have it as 97. I think also Discogs have it as 97, which is pretty weird since it's printed 96. But kick-ass album, and
Well, it's a great record. Yeah.
so
It could've been
I don't know
copied.
if you thought about this album, or do you have the same copy as me that have 96 on it? I don't know.
I have it. I'd have to check.
I
I
have
only
the
think I
vinyl.
think is maybe it got
Yeah.
copyrighted in 96, but then didn't get released until 97.
Yeah,
Does
that
seem
might be, but it's said in an interview that it was released early in 97, but I don't know.
Hmm.
It's kind of, but
Maybe-
yeah, I was
maybe
I'm
it's
pulling
another
it out, and I looked at it in 96, and then I went to check, and it was 97, so I kind of just pull it in. Yeah, another one that was mentioned earlier, Broken Hope, Loading is a great album as well. So yeah, still more to show, but we will end it there.
Right on. Alan.
Yeah, just a few to show and a few to mention quickly. Yeah, I had a different pressing of Ophidian Wheel. This was
Yeah.
another Kellen album club discovery for me. This album I like a lot. Cemetery put out Last Confessions, and this was their last album, at least for a while. This one, they're leaning into the electronic stuff they would do. The guy had a short-lived follow-up project called, I think he had one called Sundown, and he had another one that was like a number.
Yeah.
This album is leaning towards that, but this album also still has some of the sound they had been using on the previous couple of albums. I think it comes together really nicely on here.
I
It's
like
a pretty
it.
short
Yeah.
album.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very catchy, good stuff.
They definitely went a long way from Evil Shade of Grey, but
Yeah.
I still liked it. They were good at the gothic stuff.
Oh yeah, he changed pretty quickly for several albums. This was a blind buy for me just a few years ago.
That's a
I'd
good
never-
album too.
And it actually, yeah, it really is. It was a case where I was like,
Yeah.
I'm just going to hand him $15 and
Reissue vinyl.
kick myself later on. But no, actually, I was really impressed with Witchcraft.
What
by-
came after that isn't as good. That Hounds of
No.
Hell, The Shepherd and the Hounds of Hell is not great.
Yeah, and that I had gotten through tape trading back in the day, and it was, I guess, okay, but I never bothered going back to check out Witchcraft. But then I saw it on the shelf, and like, holy crap, forgot about that. Yeah, sure, we'll take a chance. It worked out. A few others I didn't pull off the shelf because I knew I had too much, but worth shouting out. Bishop of Hexen released a pretty cool black metal album.
That band sent
Archives.
me a death threat back in the day.
Did they? I did
They
not
did.
know that.
Handwritten,
Archives?
a handwritten
Other
death
than
threat from
changes.
Israel.
written in blood, or
No blood, no blood.
post
You
on
mess with the
YouTube?
wrong people, you don't know who you're messing with type shit.
Oh, good lord.
My ex-wife was terrified. I'm like, they're kids from Israel. You think they're going to hop a plane, come over here and kill my fat ass? No,
Good
let them
grief.
cry. Anyway,
Yep. Everdark did a EP called Armageddon's Birth.
They're a
which I
good
no
band.
longer-
Yeah.
I no longer have a copy of, but I always thought that was a really cool, heavy, dark release. I heard some of their other stuff and didn't like it as much. I thought the EP was the best thing they put out of what I heard. And we should give a shout out to Mythoton in the Sign of the Ravens. To this day, still the best Viking metal band for my money. They made it really exciting and epic and grandeur. So many Viking bands just make it so goddamn boring, and that it's always the same riff and the same tempo, and it just puts me to sleep. But Mythoton had enough energy and a little bit of raw black metal energy in it that I enjoyed their stuff much more than all the bands that later tried to follow in their wake. So yeah, those are my final 1997 entries. Marty, bring us home and wrap us up.
Certainly not the best black metal album in the world, but I always liked the charm of Judas Iscariot when Andrew was playing drums himself. It was sloppy and not the best, but this is of great eternity. I always like this stuff. I see why the Europeans and the Norwegians and the Scandinavians didn't like it, because it was sloppy, but he had the spirit, the right idea, the right spirit. Sounds of the Animal Kingdom. This was kind of a big deal for me when it came out. Good album.
Yep.
Brutal Truth are moving away from the death metal influence grind and more into the Japanese influence, I think. Bands like Melt Banana and other bands like that are starting to get in there. They're getting weirder. And yeah, very good, very interesting.
That was another album that got advertised everywhere in 1997. Yeah,
this was
I
their
saw that
UPS
picture
driver
so many times.
This was Relapse's when they're in Lancaster, their UPS driver. I met him when I was there. He was very proud to be on the cover, I guess. And Elements of Anger, Sadists. Not my favorite Sadists, but they're still really good at this point. They're starting to get a little bit more technical and weird, a little proggy. You've got Steve doing some work with Death along this time. I believe it was around the same time. So some of that is kind of rubbing off, I think, a little bit on Sadists. So I still like it. I haven't listened to this album in 100 years, though. Whenever I grab in Sadists, it's the first one. It just is. Illusions, Chemical Exposure is just an absolute statement. Just never gets tired or old. So yeah, there it is. There you have it.
1997, this year in metal. Gotta work on that effects board. Sorry.
We need to get need an effects board for sure.
Yes. Roger,
Delgado.
thank you so very much for hanging out with us and going through this.
Yeah,
And
it's always cool to be here. So yeah,
we always love having you on board.
Try to keep up with the chat, but it's not always easy to kind of.
The chat's been very active tonight.
Yeah.
They've mentioned a ton of albums we didn't get to. And I think it really highlights, even here at the end, we're rushing to show really good albums, albums that we like that we're barely able to cram in. 97 is a really loaded year. It's not one that people think of off the top of their head when you're asked to pick, big years in metal. I think we've demonstrated that there was a ton of albums that have withstood the test of time from 97.
Yeah, it was the same with me. Like when 97, I was thinking, was there any good albums? Like, but there was a ton. You even Rotten Christ, the Dead Poem.
That's a good album.
Yeah, I like it.
No one got to that one. Yep.
Yeah, and Overkill and Testament, and you don't like the Testament album, but I do. Demonic.
Oh, Demonic, yeah.
Demonic is not as bad as some people make it out to be.
I like it. So, but it's
cool.
kind of, it's not as deathy as I remembered it. I revisited it the other day, and it's not as deathy as I remembered it to be. It was way more thrashy than kind of my memories. So, but it's kind of, it's not the first album I pull out, but it's still a band with a very solid catalog. So
yeah. I'm looking at the thumbnail, the 3 albums right below Roger. When you change views, we didn't talk about Napalm Death. We didn't talk about Electric Wizard. We didn't talk about whatever else is hiding behind Roger right now. Children of Bodom, and that was a huge release from 97. That's another one that got a lot of hype.
Napalm Death as well, but I didn't
just
come
didn't get
around
to
to
it. Yeah.
it. It was in the bottom of one pile, so yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, the Something Wild album was, you know, a huge thing that people latched onto in '97.
Oh,
Nuclear Blast and Century Media really sort of had the metal world by the balls in '97.
Yeah.
I
I
didn't
never
keep
liked
track.
I never liked them, and I saw them live once, and it was terrible. And they kind of just like, I mean, great guitarist. I mean, that's he said he was really good at playing guitar, but when I watched them live, the synth player had this kind of tilted keyboard, so he was playing like this, and I left.
Weird.
I left the building. It was so, yeah, not good. And they were kind of, I think it was Cannibal Corpse that was the main band, so it's kind of a weird setup.
That is a weird mix.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, everybody, please go check out Roger's channel. Link in the description. I asked him a while ago to do I was curious his favorite Norwegian black metal releases, and he obliged and did a very cool video for me on that. That was awesome.
There will be more, but I had to stop in the 90s, but I will continue on with the 2000 and 2010s, and yeah.
Oh, nice, cool.
Give a little bit, my perspective of the Norwegian black metal scene.
From boots on the ground. Yep.
Yeah, from the boots on the ground.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah.
Alan, you have anything coming up Tuesday you want to talk about? You just
I
put
will see
up
the
a
first thing,
very nice collection update you did here this past Tuesday.
Yeah,
Crazy
I
find.
had some good luck with that collection. Did first want to say big thank you to everybody in the chat. It's been very, very active tonight. Sorry we couldn't keep up with more comments, but also thanks for helping us remember some names and some dates since we got stuck on a few things. I always appreciate y'all catching our mistakes, getting the right information out there. This coming Tuesday, I just put the video up this afternoon. What is it? I've been listening to some relatively strange thrash and death bands lately. I'm going to highlight a few of those. So it'll be a playlist video. I will say up front, if I look like I'm half asleep in the video, it's because I was about half asleep in the video. It's been a very busy few weeks. So yeah, it's not my most photogenic presentation, and I apologize for that, but still wanted to talk about those particular bands and albums. Been exploring some of the stranger corners for those two genres. So yep, that's what we'll do. And Marty, show notes for next week. What you got for Album Club?
We're doing The Accused debut, Return of Martha Splatterhead. So that'll be a fun one. And
next Friday night.
Friday is Jurgen and Devin. We're going to be doing the Sodom catalog.
Yep.
So that'll be fun as well.
Yep. Both Jurgen and Devin, aka Maze of Torment, will be here next Friday night, and we will talk about 17 Sodom albums. That's a whole lot of. I'm not going to say sodomy because that just sounds wrong, but yeah, it will be very cool. We've covered several of the big German bands catalogs, but Sodom we haven't. So it's definitely it's time for. I'm not going to say sodomy because that just sounds wrong. I'm just going to stop now.
Sodomy and lust.
Sign in for the Sodom episode next Friday night. It'll be a lot of fun.
And be sure to check out Alan over on Shredbeard on Sunday. I think 8 o'clock. Is that when?
8 o'clock Eastern time, aka New York time. Yep. And again, now their live stream is different. They have things divided up into different segments they do, which is a fun approach to it. So I don't know when during the show I'll be on board, but yep, I'll be there ready to chat with them, hang out, and have some fun. Their show is very high energy, and they have lots of laughs. So check it out Sunday night, and we'll see you there.
Right on. Thanks everybody in the chat. You rule. Thanks for all the super chats. You rule. We'll see if we can get Alan fitted for some leather pants in no time. Cheers, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye.